Hello guys, welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakened the Sun and Moon twin bloodlines? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dawn of Duality. The kunai whistled past Naruto's ear, close enough that he felt the disturbance in the air. He dropped into a crouch, cursing under his breath. What should have been a routine C-rank escort mission had deteriorated into chaos when they'd been ambushed by rogue ninjas from the hidden mist. Naruto, on your left. Sakura's warning cut through the forest clearing. He pivoted just in time to dodge another attack, the blade embedding itself in the tree behind him. 3 attackers circled Team 7, their faces obscured by tattered masks, only their eyes visible, cold and calculating. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto formed the familiar hand sign, and 5 copies of himself materialized in puffs of smoke. He needed to buy time. Kakashi-sensei had gone ahead with their client, a merchant carrying sensitive documents, leaving the 3 genin to handle what should have been a simple delaying action. The tallest attacker scoffed. More parlor tricks from the Nine-Tails brat. Naruto gritted his teeth. Always the same dismissal, the same contempt. His clones charged forward, but the mist ninjas were Jonin level at least, dispatching his duplicates with brutal efficiency. One by one, they vanished in puffs of smoke, each dissipation sending jolts of their brief experiences back to him. The cold slice of a blade, the crushing impact of a kick. Sasuke engaged the leader directly, his Sharingan activated, the red eyes tracking the enemy's movements. These aren't ordinary rogues, he called out, ducking under a water jutsu that splintered a tree behind him. They're too coordinated. Sakura maintained her position guarding their retreat path, kunai at the ready. We need to fall back. There's at least 2 more in the trees. Naruto knew she was right, but frustration boiled inside him. Always retreating, always being protected. He was tired of being the team's weak link, the dead last who needed saving. The Nine-Tails chakra stirred restlessly within him, responding to his anger, but he fought to suppress it. Losing control wouldn't help anyone. Just go, the tallest attacker laughed, forming hand signs too quickly to follow. Water style. Crushing wave. A massive surge of water erupted from the ground, rushing toward them with devastating force. Sasuke leapt to higher ground, but Sakura wasn't fast enough. She turned to run, stumbled on the uneven forest floor, and Naruto saw what would happen next with perfect clarity. Sakura. He sprinted toward her, knowing he wouldn't reach her in time, knowing his speed wasn't enough, but refusing to accept it. Something snapped inside him then. Different from the Nine-Tails chakra. This didn't feel hot and corrosive but warm and brilliant. His right hand began to glow with golden light, bright as the midday sun, casting long shadows across the clearing. The rogues hesitated, momentarily blinded. Naruto didn't understand what was happening, but instinct took over. He thrust his palm toward the oncoming wave, and the golden light shot forward, colliding with the water. Where they met, the water instantly evaporated into steam that billowed upward through the forest canopy. What the? One of the attackers backed away, eyes wide. The golden light faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Naruto staring at his hand in confusion. The momentary distraction cost him. The leader appeared behind him, blade raised. Naruto, behind you, Sasuke shouted. Terror gripped him. He couldn't turn in time. The Nine-Tails roared within his mind, offering its power, but something else answered first. His left hand this time, erupting with silver light, cool and serene as moonlight. He raised it instinctively, and a translucent barrier formed, catching the blade mere inches from his neck. The attacker's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. The silver light pulsed outward, throwing the man backward into a tree with bone-jarring force. He slumped to the ground, unconscious. Silence fell over the clearing. The remaining attackers exchanged glances, then melted back into the forest without another word, leaving their leader behind. Naruto stood frozen, both hands now faintly glimmering, gold in his right, silver in his left, before the light faded entirely. Sakura approached slowly, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. Naruto, what was that? I don't know. He stared at his hands, turning them over as if searching for some mark or sign. They looked normal now, no different than they had his entire life. I've never done that before. Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan, studying Naruto with newfound intensity. That wasn't the Nine Tails chakra. I've seen that before. This was different. The unconscious attacker groaned, beginning to stir. Sasuke quickly bound his hands with wire. We should get back to Kakashi-sensei, Sakura said, gathering her scattered weapons. And maybe Lady Tsunade should take a look at you when we return to the village. Naruto nodded absently, still staring at his hands. For once, the constant presence of the Nine Tails felt distant, almost respectful, as if the beast itself was puzzled by what had just occurred. 3 days later, Naruto sat on an examination table. In the Hokage Tower as Tsunade completed her examination, her hands glowing with diagnostic chakra. Nothing, she said finally, stepping back with a frown. Your chakra pathways appear normal, well, as normal as they ever are with the Nine Tails influence. There's no indication of any new changes or developments. But you believe me, right? Naruto leaned forward anxiously. I'm not making this up. Sakura and Sasuke saw it too. I believe you. Tsunade crossed her arms, her amber eyes thoughtful. Kakashi gave me a full report, and neither Sakura nor Sasuke would mistake what they saw. Golden light from your right hand, silver from your left, and abilities that manifested spontaneously under stress. So what is it? Some new Nine Tails thing? I don't think so. She walked to the window, looking out over Konoha. The Nine Tails chakra is distinctive, red, volatile, corrosive. What you're describing sounds different. Older, perhaps. Naruto slid off the table, frustration evident in his restless movements. Great, so I've got another weird thing happening to me. Just what I needed. Tsunade turned back to him, her expression softening slightly. I'm going to consult some old records. The first Hokage left extensive notes on various bloodlines and abilities. There might be something there. Bloodlines, like the Sharingan or Byakugan. Possibly. She tapped her fingers against her arm thoughtfully. In the meantime, I want you to try to activate these abilities again, in a controlled environment. See if you can call upon them deliberately rather than just in response to danger. Naruto's eyes lit up. You mean like training? I can do that. Under supervision, Tsunade emphasized. Work with Kakashi. If this is a new ability manifesting, we need to understand it. And Naruto, her voice grew serious. Keep this between us for now. At least until we know more. Right, he nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of secrecy. But what about Sakura and Sasuke? They already know. They can help with your training. Just don't discuss it beyond your team. Tsunade returned to her desk, already pulling out scrolls. Come back in 3 days. I should have some information by then. As Naruto left the Hokage Tower, his mind raced with possibilities. New abilities that weren't related to the Nine Tails could change everything, how people saw him, how he could protect his friends. His path to becoming Hokage. For once, something about him might not be tied to the beast sealed inside him. He flexed his hands, trying to recapture that feeling, the warm brilliance in his right. The cool serenity in his left. Nothing happened. Whatever had awakened in the forest remained dormant. Naruto. He looked up to see Sakura waiting for him at the bottom of the steps, her pink hair catching the afternoon sunlight. What did Lady Tsunade say? She asked as he approached. Not much, he admitted. She couldn't find anything wrong with me, but she's going to check some old records. And I'm supposed to train with Kakashi-sensei to see if I can make it happen again. Sakura fell into step beside him as they walked through the village streets. I've been doing some reading myself, she said, her voice lowered. In the medical library, there are old legends about shinobi with abilities tied to celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars. Most of it's dismissed as mythology, but maybe it's not. Naruto finished for her, a spark of excitement igniting within him. It wouldn't be the first time old legends turned out to have truth to them. She gave him a meaningful look. The tailed beasts were considered myths by some until they were proven very real. They paused at the bridge where Team 7 often met, leaning against the railing and watching the water flow beneath them. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the surface. What kind of abilities? Naruto asked after a moment. In these legends, I mean. Sakura's brow furrowed in concentration. It varied. Those connected to the sun were said to have powers over light, heat, sometimes life itself. Moon-affiliated shinobi controlled shadows, reflections, the mind. But the texts were fragmentary, more poetic than practical. And nobody's ever heard of someone having both. Not that I found. She studied him carefully. What did it feel like? When it happened, Naruto stared at his hands, trying to find the words. The right hand, the gold light, it felt like standing in perfect sunlight on the first warm day of spring. Powerful but good, safe. He flexed his fingers, remembering. The left hand, the silver one, was different. Calm, like when you're looking at the full moon on a clear night and everything just seems quiet. Right, and the nine tails. Did you feel its chakra mixing with these new abilities? That's the weird thing, Naruto said. The nine tails was watching. Like it was just as surprised as I was. He laughed nervously. That probably sounds crazy. Not necessarily. Sakura pushed away from the railing. The nine tails is ancient. If these abilities are as old as the legends suggest, it might recognize them even if you don't. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the gentle sound of flowing water. Naruto appreciated these moments with Sakura, moments when she saw him as more than the class clown or the nine tails container. Since Sasuke's brief defection and eventual return to the village, their team dynamic had shifted. They'd all grown, sometimes painfully. I should go, Sakura said finally. I promised to help at the hospital tonight. But Naruto, she hesitated. Whatever this is, it could be important. Not just for you, but maybe for all of us. He nodded, understanding her meaning. In the ninja world, EU powers rarely remained personal matters for long. Just be careful, she added, offering a small smile before turning to leave. Naruto remained at the bridge, watching the play of light on water until the sun began to set. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, he made one more attempt, focusing his chakra into his hands, right for sun, left for moon. Nothing happened, but something felt different inside him, as if pathways long dormant were slowly awakening. Whatever this power was, he would master it. Not for himself, but for everyone he'd sworn to protect. Dawn broke over the third training ground, painting the 3 wooden posts with golden light. Naruto had arrived early, eager to begin, and now sat cross-legged in the dewy grass with his eyes closed, trying to recapture the feeling from the forest battle. Focusing on internal chakra flow is more Hinata's style than yours, came Kakashi's voice, somehow both lazy and perceptive. Naruto's eyes snapped open. His sensei stood before him. Orange book conspicuously absent for once. I've been trying for an hour, Naruto admitted, standing and brushing grass from his pants. Nothing's happening. Lady Tsunade briefed me on the situation. Kakashi's visible eye curved in what might have been a smile beneath his mask. Interesting development. Though I'm not surprised it's you, Naruto. You've always had a knack for the unexpected. Did she find anything in those old records? Not yet, but we don't need ancient scrolls to begin training. Kakashi gestured to the open field. Let's start with what we know. These abilities manifested when Sakura was in danger, when you had a powerful emotional response coupled with clear intent. So I need to get angry again. Naruto frowned. That's usually when the nine tails chakra comes out. Not angry specifically, Kakashi corrected. Emotional, yes, but focused. You weren't just angry. You were determined to protect someone precious to you. There's a difference. Naruto considered this. So how do we recreate that without putting someone in actual danger? We don't. Kakashi pulled 2 small bells from his pocket, the same bells from their first genin test. Instead, we create a different kind of pressure. These bells represent something precious. Your task is to protect them from me, but, he held up a finger, you can only use your new abilities. No shadow clones, no Rasengan, no nine tails chakra, but I don't know how to activate them on purpose yet. That's the whole point. Exactly. Kakashi's eye crinkled again. You'll have to figure it out as we go. Sometimes the body remembers what the mind forgets. He tied the bells to a post, then stepped back. I'll give you 5 minutes to prepare mentally. Then I'm coming for those bells, and I won't hold back. Naruto swallowed hard. When Kakashi said he wouldn't hold back, he meant it. Without his usual techniques, how could he possibly defend the bells? The 5 minutes passed too quickly. Naruto positioned himself before the post, hands raised in a guard position, watching Kakashi carefully. "Begin," Kakashi said simply, then vanished. A blur of movement to his left. Naruto pivoted, blocking a kick that numbed his forearm. Kakashi was already gone, appearing behind him. A sharp jab to his kidney sent Naruto stumbling forward. Another strike, another, each coming faster than the last. Naruto defended as best he could. But without his shadow clones to divide Kakashi's attention, he was outmatched. "Focus, Naruto," Kakashi called, now standing casually beside the post with the bells. "What were you feeling in the forest? What triggered the response?" Naruto dodged a kunai, trying to reach Sakura. He lunged toward Kakashi, who sidestepped effortlessly. And I knew I wouldn't make it in time. Frustration built inside him as Kakashi landed another strike, sending him sprawling. "I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. But you still tried." Kakashi's hand reached for the bells. "You still moved forward, even knowing you would fail." Something clicked in Naruto's mind. It wasn't just the desire to protect, it was the absolute refusal to accept limitations. To transcend what should be possible. He scrambled to his feet, eyes fixed on Kakashi's hand as it closed around the bells. No, his right palm burned with sudden heat, and golden light erupted from it, shooting across the field like a beam of concentrated sunlight. Kakashi's eye widened in genuine surprise as he leapt away, the light missing him by inches and striking a tree behind him. Where it hit, the bark didn't burn but rather seemed to crack with internal light, as if illuminated from within. "There it is," Kakashi said, a note of approval in his voice. "Now hold on to that feeling." What triggered it this time? Naruto stared at his glowing hand in wonder. Determination, he realized, not accepting failure as an option. The will of fire, Kakashi nodded. Fitting for an ability that manifests as golden light. Quote, the glow was already fading. Naruto concentrated, trying to maintain it, but it slipped away like water through his fingers. "It's still tied to your emotional state," Kakashi observed. "With practice, you'll be able to call upon it at will. Now, let's see about the other one." He moved toward the bells again, but this time with a barrage of shuriken preceding him. Naruto dodged most, but one caught his sleeve, pinning him momentarily to the post. In that second of vulnerability, Kakashi was upon him, kunai raised. Instinctively, Naruto raised his left hand. The cool silver light bloomed from his palm, expanding outward into that same translucent barrier he'd created in the forest. Kakashi's kunai struck it and stopped dead, unable to penetrate. "Fascinating," Kakashi murmured, applying more pressure to test the barrier's strength. It held firm, a defensive capability to complement the offensive one. "But I wonder," he jumped back suddenly, forming hand signs. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu." A massive ball of flame roared toward Naruto. The silver barrier was still active, but Naruto doubted it would withstand such an attack. Acting on pure instinct, he raised his right hand as well, the golden light reappearing. When he brought his hands together, the gold and silver light merged into a brilliant white radiance that surrounded him completely. The fireball engulfed him, but he felt nothing. No heat, no pain. When the flames dissipated, Naruto stood unharmed within a sphere of pulsating white light that slowly faded away. Kakashi lowered his hands, studying Naruto with new respect. Both abilities at once. That's unexpected progress. Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was incredible. He looked at his hands in wonder as the last traces of light disappeared. "It didn't even feel like I was using chakra, at least not in the normal way. I suspect it's something different altogether." Kakashi approached, his posture relaxed now that the training exercise was concluded. "Something that might have been dormant inside you all along, perhaps triggered by your growth and experiences. But why now? Why me? Those are questions for Lady Tsunade's research." Kakashi ruffled Naruto's hair, a rare gesture of affection. "For now, we focus on what we can control, learning to summon these abilities at will and understanding their capabilities." The sound of approaching footsteps drew their attention. Sakura and Sasuke emerged from the tree line, followed by Shikamaru and Tenten. Looks like we missed the show, Shikamaru drawled. Hands in his pockets. Naruto shot Kakashi a questioning look. I thought this was supposed to be secret. From the village at large, yes, Kakashi explained. But Lady Tsunade and I agreed that a small, trusted group would be beneficial for your training. Each person here brings specific skills that might help us understand your new abilities. Sakura stepped forward. I've been researching the medical aspects and historical records. My Sharingan can track the flow of chakra or whatever this energy is, Sasuke added, his usual reserve tempered with genuine curiosity. I'm here because apparently watching clouds wasn't troublesome enough. Shikamaru sighed, but the gleam in his eyes betrayed his interest. Seriously though, strategic applications of new abilities is kind of my thing. And I know weapons and how they interact with different chakra types better than anyone, Tenten finished, already examining Naruto with a specialist's eye. If these powers can be channeled through tools, I'm your girl. Naruto felt a rush of gratitude. Despite the secrecy surrounding his new abilities, he wouldn't be facing this alone. So, Tenten continued, what exactly did we miss? An impressive display, Kakashi answered before Naruto could speak. But we've only scratched the surface. Naruto, why don't you try to activate the golden light again? Just the right hand this time. All eyes turned to him expectantly. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to recapture that feeling of absolute determination. Nothing happened. It's still tied to emotional responses. Kakashi explained to the others. Triggered by specific mental states rather than chakra control techniques. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, but not unusual for Kekkei Genkai that manifest later in life. They often require emotional catalysts until the pathways are fully developed. Kekkei Genkai. Naruto opened his eyes. You think this is a bloodline ability? Shikamaru shrugged. It's displaying the classic signs. Spontaneous manifestation under stress, abilities outside normal chakra nature transformations, tied to specific body parts or chakra pathways. But whose bloodline? Sakura asked the question they were all thinking. Naruto's parentage has always been unknown. An uncomfortable silence fell. Naruto's orphan status had always been a sensitive subject, made more complicated by the 9 tales sealed within him. That, came a new voice, is what I've been investigating. They turned to see Tsunade approaching, an ancient-looking scroll tucked under her arm. Her expression was serious but held a hint of excitement that immediately piqued Naruto's curiosity. Did you find something, Granny Tsunade? For once, she didn't scold him for the nickname. I did, something that hasn't been seen in Konoha for generations. She unrolled the scroll carefully on a flat rock, revealing faded illustrations of 2 distinct symbols, a radiant sun and a crescent moon. The Hinata and Tsukuyomi bloodlines. She explained, pointing to each symbol in turn. 2 ancient clans predating even the founding of Konoha, thought to have died out during the Warring States period. Hinata, Naruto repeated, thinking of his shy classmate with the pale eyes. Like Hinata Hyuga, the Hyuga took their name from the older Hinata clan, Tsunade clarified. There may be distant connections, but they're distinct bloodlines. The Hinata were known as the children of the sun, while the Tsukuyomi were children of the moon. Tenten leaned closer to examine the scroll. I've never heard of either clan. Few have. Their abilities were rare and became the stuff of legend over time. Tsunade traced the ancient text with her finger. According to these records, the Hinata could channel the sun's energy, light, heat, vitality. The Tsukuyomi manipulated the moon's influence, reflection, shadows, barriers. Just like what Naruto did, Sakura said softly. Exactly. Tsunade looked up, meeting Naruto's wide-eyed gaze. But here's where it gets interesting. There's no record of anyone ever manifesting both bloodlines simultaneously. They were considered opposing forces, complementary but separate. Then how? Naruto began. Your mother, Tsunade said simply. The world seemed to stop. Naruto felt lightheaded suddenly, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. My mother. Tsunade's expression softened. Kushina Uzumaki. She came from the land of whirlpools, where the last descendants of both clans had sought refuge after the wars. According to these records, she carried dormant genes from both bloodlines, though they never manifested in her. And my father. Naruto's voice was barely above a whisper. A shadow passed over Tsunade's face. That information remains classified for now, Naruto. I'm sorry. Quote, he wanted to protest, to demand answers about the parents he'd never known, but the revelation about his mother had already left him reeling. He had a name now, Kushina Uzumaki, and a heritage beyond being the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. So these abilities, Sasuke broke the silence, they've been dormant in Naruto all along. It appears so. Tsunade rolled the scroll carefully. The question is why they're manifesting now. The Nine Tails, Kakashi suggested thoughtfully. Naruto's been learning to control its chakra, changing the internal balance of his energy. Perhaps that shift created the conditions for these dormant bloodlines to awaken. Or, Shikamaru added, it could be age-related. Many Kekkei Genkai manifest during adolescence, triggered by hormonal changes and chakra pathway development. Whatever the cause, Tsunade said, the fact remains that Naruto now possesses abilities not seen for generations. Abilities that, if the legends are accurate, hold tremendous potential. A somber mood settled over the group as the implications sank in. New abilities meant new responsibilities, new dangers, new attention, both wanted and unwanted. So what happens now? Naruto asked, looking from Tsunade to Kakashi. Now, Tsunade said firmly, you train. Master these abilities before word spreads. Because it will spread, Naruto. Power like this can't stay hidden forever. And when it does, Kakashi added, you'll need to be ready for whatever comes next. The weight of their words settled on Naruto's shoulders. He looked down at his hands. Ordinary-looking hands that now held extraordinary power, and made a silent promise to himself. Whatever these abilities were, whatever they meant about his past, he would use them as he'd always NDED to use his strength, to protect his friends and his village. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting their shadows sharply against the ground. In the distance, clouds gathered on the horizon, a reminder that even the brightest day could bring unexpected storms. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of intensive training. Each day brought small breakthroughs as Naruto learned to access his new abilities with increasing control. The golden light, solar chakra, as Tsunade had termed it, responded to his determination and will. The silver light, lunar chakra, manifested when he sought to protect or preserve. On a particularly productive afternoon, Naruto stood in the center of the training ground, surrounded by his small circle of confidants. Trees still bore scorch marks from his earlier attempts, and a training dummy lay shattered from a particularly powerful burst of solar chakra. Try combining them again, Tenten suggested, adjusting a special kunai she designed to channel his energies. But this time, focus on balance rather than just power. Naruto nodded, raising both hands. The golden light bloomed in his right palm, warm and vibrant. The silver appeared in his left, cool and serene. Slowly, he brought his hands together, concentrating on harmonizing the opposing energies rather than simply merging them. Where they met, a perfect sphere of white light formed, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. Unlike previous attempts that had produced wild, unstable energy, this felt controlled, purposeful. That's it, Sakura encouraged from the sideline, her medical scanner active. Your chakra network is stabilizing instead of spiking. Naruto carefully expanded the sphere, allowing it to grow until it surrounded him completely. Inside, he felt a profound sense of balance. Neither the burning intensity of the solar chakra nor the detached calm of the lunar, but something new altogether. Celestial harmony, he murmured, giving name to the technique for the first time. Not bad, Shikamaru acknowledged with a rare smile. Now let's see what you can do with it. Naruto directed the sphere toward one of Tenten's targets, a reinforced steel plate that had withstood his previous attacks. The sphere moved as if it were an extension of his will, flowing across the field like water. When it made contact with the steel, there was no explosion, no violent reaction. Instead, the metal simply yielded, parting like cloth before a blade, edges glowing white-hot where they'd been cut. Perfect control, Tenten breathed, examining the clean cut. It didn't even heat the surrounding metal. This changes our approach, Kakashi said thoughtfully. It's not just about raw power but precision. Naruto released the technique, the sphere dissolving into motes of light that faded away. Despite 2 weeks of intensive training, using both energies simultaneously still drained him considerably. He sat down heavily on the grass, breathing hard. You're getting stronger, Sakura noted, handing him a water bottle. The first time you tried that, you passed out. Still takes a lot out of me, he admitted between gulps. That's to be expected, came a voice from the edge of the training ground. They turned to see a slender woman in Anbu gear, her face concealed by a fox mask. Only her long black hair, tied in a tight braid, was visible. Kakashi straightened. Yukina, I didn't expect you back so soon. The woman removed her mask, revealing delicate features and eyes so dark they appeared almost black. The situation has developed faster than anticipated. Tsunade had mentioned sending an Anbu operative to investigate rumors of other dormant bloodline abilities manifesting in distant villages, but she hadn't shared details. Naruto studied the newcomer curiously. There was something familiar about her, though he was certain they'd never met. This is Yukina, Kakashi introduced her to the group. One of our most skilled intelligence operatives. She nodded briefly in acknowledgement before turning to Tsunade, who had just arrived. We need to talk privately. Whatever you found, you can share it with everyone present, Tsunade said firmly. They're all involved in this now. Yukina's expression remained neutral, but Naruto sensed her disapproval. Very well. The rumors were true. There have been manifestations of similar abilities in 3 locations: the Land of Rivers, the Land of Iron, and the ruins of Uzushiogakure. At the mention of Uzushiogakure, the ancestral home of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto felt a jolt of recognition. His mother had come from there before its destruction. Similar abilities. Sasuke pressed. You mean solar and lunar chakra? Similar but distinct, Yukina clarified. Fractured versions, manipulating specific aspects rather than the full spectrum. In the Land of Rivers, a young woman can manipulate water using what appears to be lunar reflection principles. In the Land of Iron, a samurai has developed techniques that harness sunlight to strengthen his blade. And Uzushiogakure? Naruto asked eagerly. Yukina's eyes fixed on him, assessing. There, the manifestation is more problematic. Someone is actively trying to harvest these bloodlines from descendants who may carry dormant traits. A chill ran through the group. Harvest, Sakura repeated. I mean they're capturing people with Hinata or Kuyomi ancestry and experimenting on them, Yukina said bluntly. Trying to forcibly awaken dormant abilities or extract the genetic material that carries them. Who would do such a thing? Tenten demanded. They call themselves Eclipse. Yukina pulled a scroll from her pouch, unfurling it to reveal a symbol, a black circle with jagged edges, like a sun being devoured. A organization dedicated to collecting and controlling celestial bloodlines. They believe these powers are meant to be united under a single wielder. All eyes turned to Naruto, who already embodied exactly what this Eclipse group sought. They don't know about him yet, Tsunade stated rather than asked. They suspect something, Yukina corrected. There are rumors of unusual chakra manifestations in Konoha. It won't be long before they connect the dots. Then we need to act first, Kakashi said decisively. Gather information, understand their capabilities and intentions. I agree. Tsunade turned to Naruto and his friends. This changes our timeline. I'm authorizing an investigation mission to the Land of Rivers. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Tenten, you'll depart tomorrow at dawn. What about me? Yukina asked. You'll continue your intelligence gathering, Tsunade replied. Focus on identifying Eclipse's leadership and structure. We need to know who we're dealing with. As the group dispersed to prepare for the mission, Naruto remained behind, still processing everything he'd learned. His heritage, his abilities, and now this mysterious organization hunting people with similar bloodlines, it was overwhelming. You have questions, Yukina observed, approaching him with silent steps. A few thousand, he admitted wryly. But I'll start with one. These abilities, the ones showing up in other people, are they as strong as mine? No, she said without hesitation. From what I've observed, they're fragments, echoes of the true bloodlines. What you possess is complete, integrated. That makes you unique, and valuable. The way she said, valuable, sent another chill through him. You think Eclipse will come after me specifically? Eventually, yes. Her dark eyes studied him with unsettling intensity. But there's something else you should know, Naruto Uzumaki. Something about these bloodlines that even Lady Tsunade hasn't discovered yet. What's that? They're connected to the tailed beasts in ways long forgotten. Yukina glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. The first Hokage understood this. It's why he distributed the tailed beasts among the villages after capturing them. He feared what would happen if they ever came into contact with a fully awakened celestial bloodline wielder. Naruto leaned forward, pulse quickening. Connected how? And why would that be dangerous? Yukina's gaze shifted toward the village, her voice dropping lower. The ancient texts speak of the tailed beasts as fragments of a primordial force, much like your sun and moon energies or aspects of celestial power. There are theories that someone wielding both could potentially harmonize with a tailed beast. Not just contain it, as Jinchuriki do, but truly synchronize with its power. That doesn't sound so bad, Naruto said cautiously. Wouldn't it be good if the Nine Tails and I could work together better? A faint smile touched Yukina's lips. Perspective is everything, isn't it? To you, it represents harmony. To those who would control such power, it represents the ultimate weapon. She stepped closer, her voice barely audible. Be careful who you trust, Naruto Uzumaki. N.O.T. Everyone in Konoha will welcome the emergence of powers they cannot control. Before he could respond, she replaced her mask and vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving Naruto alone with his thought. And the setting sun casting long shadows across the training ground. Dawn painted the sky in bands of gold and violet as Team 7, accompanied by Shikamaru and Tenten, gathered at Konoha's main gate. Each carried a pack with supplies for what Tsunade had designated a 2-week reconnaissance mission to the Land of Rivers. Everyone clear on the objectives? Kakashi asked, scrolling through the mission details one final time. Locate the woman with water manipulation abilities, Sakura recited, determine if her powers are indeed related to lunar chakra, and if so, learn how they manifested. Quote, gather intelligence on Eclipse's activities in the region, Sasuke continued, adjusting his weapons pouch. And keep Naruto's abilities secret unless absolutely necessary, Shikamaru finished with a yawn. What a drag, being awake at this hour. Tenten elbowed him playfully. You can sleep when we make camp. For now, focus on the mission. Naruto remained uncharacteristically quiet, still processing his conversation with Yukina the previous evening. The idea that his new abilities might allow him to harmonize with the Nine Tails rather than simply containing it was revolutionary, potentially changing everything about his relationship with the creature sealed inside him. Naruto. Kakashi's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Everything all right? Yeah, he nodded quickly. Just thinking about the mission. Kakashi studied him for a moment longer than necessary, but didn't press the issue. Remember, this is primarily reconnaissance. Observe, gather information, and report back. Engage only if necessary. We got it, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura assured him. We'll be careful. As they turned to leave, a small figure hurried toward them from the village street. Hinata Hyuga approached, slightly out of breath. A small package clutched in her hands. Naruto, she called, her pale eyes fixed determinedly on a point somewhere near his shoulder rather than meeting his gaze directly. I heard you were leaving on a mission. Hinata. Naruto blinked in surprise. How did you know? This mission is supposed to be confidential. She blushed faintly. I overheard Kurenai-sensei speaking with Lady Tsunade. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's fine, he smiled, genuinely happy to see her. Since their shared experiences during the Chunin exams, he developed a deeper appreciation for the quiet strength behind her shy exterior. What's up? I wanted to give you this. She held out the package, wrapped in simple cloth. It's a special ointment my family makes. It helps with chakra burns and exhaustion. I thought it might be useful. Thanks, Hinata. Naruto accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. That's really thoughtful. Something flickered at the edge of his awareness as their hands briefly touched during the exchange. A subtle resonance, like a tuning fork responding to a specific frequency. The golden chakra in his right hand stirred faintly, though it didn't manifest visibly. Hinata's eyes widened slightly, her Byakugan activating involuntarily for just a moment. Your chakra, she whispered. It's different. Naruto tensed, glancing quickly at his teammates. They'd moved a short distance away, giving them privacy but remaining within earshot. What do you mean? He asked carefully. I'm not sure. Her brow furrowed in concentration. There's something familiar about it. Like looking at a reflection of something I've seen before. She deactivated her Byakugan, embarrassment returning. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. No, it's okay, Naruto reassured her, mind racing. Tsunade had mentioned a possible connection between the Hyuga and the ancient Hinata clan. Could Hinata be sensing the solar chakra because of her own distant heritage? Before he could pursue the thought, Sakura called from the gate. Naruto, we need to get moving. Coming, he called back, then turned to Hinata with an apologetic smile. Thanks again for the ointment. I'll tell you all about the mission when we get back, okay? She nodded, a small smile lighting her face. Be safe, Naruto. As he rejoined his team and they set off down the road, Naruto Sue didn't shake the feeling that the encounter with Hinata was significant somehow. Another piece of a puzzle he was only beginning to understand. What was that about? Sakura asked once they were beyond the village boundaries. Hinata brought me some medicinal ointment, Naruto explained, then hesitated before adding, and she noticed something different about my chakra. Just for a second, when her Byakugan activated, Shikamaru frowned. That complicates things. The Byakugan can perceive chakra networks with incredible detail. If she noticed a change, others might too, Sasuke finished. We should accelerate Naruto's training. The better his control, the less likely his abilities will flare unintentionally. We can work on that during the journey, Tenten suggested. I've been developing some focusing techniques that might help. Naruto nodded, grateful for their support but still troubled. As they traveled through the forests surrounding Konoha, he found himself repeatedly checking his right hand. Remembering the faint stirring of power when he'd touched Hinata. There was a connection there, one that might prove important in understanding his heritage. The journey to the land of rivers would take 3 days at their current pace. 3 days for training, for planning, and for Naruto to come to terms with the rapidly expanding complications of his newfound abilities. By midday, they had covered significant ground, the forests of Fire Country giving way to rolling hills as they approached the border. They paused near a small stream to rest and refill their water containers. This is a good opportunity for some controlled practice, Tenten suggested, pulling a scroll from her pack. She unrolled it on a flat rock, revealing a series of intricate seals. I've been studying how different chakra natures interact with sealing techniques. I think your celestial energies might respond to specific seals. Naruto sat cross-legged before the scroll, examining the unfamiliar patterns. How does it work? Focus your solar chakra here. She pointed to a spiral pattern reminiscent of the sun. Just a small amount. The seal should help contain and stabilize it. Under Tenten's guidance, Naruto extended his right hand and concentrated. The familiar warmth built slowly, golden light blooming from his palm. Instead of letting it expand freely, he directed it toward the seal. Watching in fascination as the energy seemed drawn into the pattern. The seal began to glow, the ink lines shifting from black to gold as they absorbed his chakra. Unlike his previous attempts at control, which had felt like trying to contain a wild current, this felt natural, as if the seal were designed specifically for this energy. It's working, he said in wonder. The ancient clans must have used similar techniques. Sakura observed, watching closely. This could be how they refined their abilities over generations. Tenten nodded. Sealing jutsu is one of the oldest ninja arts. It Kes sensed that celestial chakra would respond to it. Naruto continued feeding small amounts of energy into the seal, gaining a better feel for how his solar chakra behaved when controlled rather than simply released. After several minutes, Tenten instructed him to withdraw the energy, which he managed with only minor difficulty. Now try the lunar chakra, she suggested, pointing to a crescent-shaped seal on the opposite side of the scroll. This proved more challenging. The lunar energy was inherently more fluid, less direct than its solar counterpart. Naruto struggled to guide it precisely into the seal, the silver light slipping away like water between fingers. I can't get it to stay focused, he admitted after several attempts. Interesting, Shikamaru mused, observing from nearby. The solar responds to direct will. But the lunar requires a different approach. Try not directing it, Sasuke suggested unexpectedly. Everyone turned to look at him, and he continued with reluctance. As if sharing knowledge he'd rather keep private. When I was learning to control certain aspects of the Sharingan, I found that some abilities responded better to indirect intention rather than forced control. Indirect intention, Naruto repeated, confused. He means stop trying to make it do what you want, Sakura translated. Instead, create the conditions for it to do what it naturally would. Naruto considered this, then closed his eyes, focusing on the feeling of the lunar chakra, cool, reflective, protective. Instead of pushing it toward the seal, he imagined the seal drawing it in, like the moon pulling at tides. The silver light responded immediately, flowing smoothly into the crescent pattern. The seal glowed with gentle radiance, stabilizing the energy in a way his own efforts couldn't achieve. That's it, Tenten said excitedly. The solar responds to will, the lunar to intention. Different approaches for different energies. Just like the sun pushes light outward while the moon reflects it back. Sakura added, the academic in her clearly fascinated by the implications. Naruto practiced alternating between the two energies for another hour, gaining a better feel for their distinct natures and how to transition between them. By the time they resumed their journey, he felt more confident in his ability to call upon each energy at will, though combining them still required intense concentration. As they traveled, Shikamaru walked beside him, unusually talkative for someone who typically preferred silence. I've been thinking about tactical applications, he said, watching the clouds overhead. Your solar chakra has obvious offensive potential, but it's the lunar aspects that intrigue me. The barriers, Naruto guessed, not just barriers. From what we've seen, lunar chakra seems to affect perception and reflection. There could be applications in genjutsu, in concealment, maybe even in space-time techniques. Space-time, Naruto frowned, like the fourth Hokage's flying thunder god technique. Quote, possibly. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. The legends describe the Tsukuyomi clan manipulating shadows and reflections. What is a reflection but a duplicate existing in a different space? What is a shadow but an absence defined by presence? Naruto's head spun with the abstract concepts. You lost me. What he means, Sakura interjected from behind them, is that your lunar chakra might be capable of more than just creating barriers. It might allow you to manipulate space itself in limited ways. Like teleportation, Naruto's eyes widened at the possibility. Maybe something simpler at first, Shikamaru cautioned. Like creating a reflection of yourself that can move independently, or stepping into a shadow and emerging from another. The possibilities were tantalizing. But before Naruto could pursue the conversation further, Sasuke raised a hand from his position at point, signaling them to stop. Someone's coming, he said quietly. Sharingan activated. Two people, moving quickly. They took defensive positions among the trees bordering the road, concealing their presence while maintaining sight lines. Within moments, two figures appeared on the path. A young woman with long blue-black hair sprinting desperately, pursued by a masked figure in a dark cloak. Help! The woman cried out, though she couldn't have seen them hidden among the foliage. Someone, please. Quote, the masked pursuer was gaining ground, hands forming seals for what appeared to be a water jutsu. As the woman stumbled, a jet of pressurized water shot toward her back. Naruto moved without thinking, leaping from cover. His left hand raised instinctively, silver light forming a barrier that intercepted the water attack mere inches from the woman's body. Quote, what the masked figure skidded to a halt, clearly surprised by the intervention. The rest of the team emerged from hiding, surrounding the pursuer. Sasuke's blade gleamed in the afternoon light, pointed steadily at the masked individual's throat. That's far enough, he said coldly. The woman stared at Naruto with wide, violet eyes, her gaze fixed on the fading silver light around his hand. You, she whispered, you have it too. Quote, before anyone could respond, the masked figure made a quick sign and dissolved into water, splashing to the ground and seeping away, a water clone, not the real attacker. Damn it, Tenten cursed, scanning the surroundings. They got away. They'll be back, the woman said, still staring at Naruto. They always come back. Who are you? Sakura asked, approaching cautiously. And why were they chasing you? My name is Amaya. The woman straightened, composing herself with visible effort. And they were chasing me because of what I can do. She extended her hand toward the stream running alongside the path. With a fluid gesture, water rose in a perfect sphere, hovering above her palm. Unlike normal water manipulation, the sphere glimmered with faint silver light, reminiscent of moonlight reflecting off a still pond. Lunar chakra, Shikamaru murmured. Just like Yukina described, Naruto stepped forward, extending his left hand. The silver light appeared again, responding to his intention rather than forced will, just as he'd practiced. We've been looking for you, Amaya. Her eyes widened. You control both, the silver and the gold. At Naruto's surprised expression, she continued, I can sense it in you, both energies, balanced but distinct. We have a lot to talk about, Sakura said diplomatically. But first, let's find somewhere safer. Whoever sent that water clone might return with reinforcements. Amaya nodded, her expression a mixture of wariness and hope. I know a place. Follow me. As they moved off the main path into the denser forest, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that their mission had just become significantly more complicated, and that finding Amaya so quickly was either incredible luck or something else entirely. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees. Somewhere in those shadows, Naruto sensed, their real challenges waited. Amaya led them to a small cave concealed behind a waterfall, the entrance nearly invisible unless one knew exactly where to look. Inside, simple living arrangements, bedroll, cooking implements, scrolls, indicated she'd been hiding here for some time. It's not much, she said, lighting a small fire in a stone pit, but it's safe. The flowing water disrupts chakra signatures, making it harder for them to track me. How long have you been running? Sakura asked, helping the woman tend to a minor wound on her arm from her earlier fall. 3 months, Amaya replied, wincing slightly as Sakura applied antiseptic. Ever since my abilities manifested during a flood in my village. I saved several children from drowning, but afterward. She gestured to her water manipulation. This started happening whenever I was near water. And the people chasing you? Sasuke prompted, standing near the cave entrance, keeping watch. They called themselves Eclipse. At first, they approached peacefully, offering to help me understand my gift. But their real intention became clear quickly. They wanted to use me, to study me, to see if others from my bloodline could be harvested. The word sent a chill through the group, exactly as Yukina had described. Do you know anything about the organization itself? Shikamaru asked. Leadership, bases, objectives. Amaya shook her head. Only fragments. Their leader is called Kagami, the Mirror. They believe celestial bloodlines belong to a single wielder who will unite sun and moon powers. Her eyes found Naruto again. Someone like you. All eyes turned to him, and Naruto shifted uncomfortably. I only just discovered these abilities myself. I'm still learning how they work. May I? Amaya asked, extending her hand toward him. After a hesitant nod from Naruto, she placed her palm near his, not quite touching. Her silver-tinged chakra emerged, responding to his lunar energy like two magnets of the same polarity, similar but repelling slightly. Fascinating, she murmured. Your lunar chakra is pure, complete. Mine is fragmented, focused solely on water. The legends said this might happen. Dilution of the bloodlines over generations until only specific aspects remained. You know about the legends. Sakura leaned forward eagerly. My grandmother was a historian before our village was destroyed in the last ninja war. She preserved scrolls about the celestial clans, the Hinata and the Tsukuyomi. Amaya withdrew her hand. She believed our family had distant connections to the Tsukuyomi, though the bloodline had been dormant for generations. What triggered it? Shikamaru asked. Necessity. Desperation. Amaya's eyes darkened with memory. The flood was destroying everything. Children were being swept away. I just reached out, and the water responded. It wasn't a conscious technique. Naruto nodded in understanding. That's how mine first appeared too, when someone I cared about was in danger. Emotional catalysts, Tenten mused. Consistent with Kekkei Genkei awakening patterns. As night fell outside the cave, they shared their supplies with Amaya and took turns keeping watch. During his shift, Naruto sat at the cave entrance, watching moonlight play across the falling water. The silver light seemed to call to the lunar chakra within him, making it easier to access, more responsive to his thoughts. Experimentally, he extended his left hand toward the waterfall. Silver light spread from his fingers, connecting with the falling water. To his surprise, the water responded, a portion of the fall diverting to flow around his hand in a spiraling pattern without actually touching him. Water has a natural affinity for lunar chakra, came Amaya's voice as she sat beside him. It's why my abilities manifested that way specifically. So different people might develop different aspects based on their circumstances. Naruto asked, releasing the technique and letting the water return to its natural flow. That's what the legends suggest. She hugged her knees to her chest. Watching the moonlit landscape, the original bloodlines could manipulate all aspects of their respective celestial forces. Over time, as the bloodlines mixed with others or grew distant from their sources, they became specialized. Like the Byakugan and the Sharingan, Naruto realized different evolutions of similar original abilities. Amaya nodded. Exactly. But you, she studied him with renewed interest. You possess both bloodlines in their complete forms. That shouldn't be possible according to everything I know. My mother apparently carried genes from both clans, Naruto explained, finding it strangely easy to talk to this woman he'd just met. Perhaps it was their shared connection to these ancient powers. They never activated in her, but somehow, I got both. And you contain the 9 tails as well. It wasn't a question. Naruto tensed. How did you know that? Rumors of the 9 tails Jinchuriki from Konoha reach even remote villages. Her expression held no fear or judgment. Only curiosity. Does it affect your celestial chakra? I don't know yet, he admitted. They seem separate so far, but there are theories that they might be connected somehow. Amaya was silent for a long moment, watching the play of moonlight on water. There's something I haven't told your friends, she said finally, voice lowered. Something about Eclipse that might be important. What is it? Their leader, Kagami, he possesses a fractured version of the moon bloodline. He can create perfect reflections, illusions so real they can interact with the physical world. She shivered slightly. I've seen him split into multiple copies, each one solid and independent. Not clones like your ninja technique, but actual reflections of himself with their own thoughts and actions. That sounds dangerous. It is, but it's also incomplete, unstable. Each reflection drains him, can only exist temporarily. Her violet eyes locked with his. That's why he wants to find someone like you. He believes absorbing a complete bloodline would stabilize his abilities, make them permanent. Absorbing. Naruto frowned. Is that even possible? I don't know, but Eclipse has been experimenting, trying to extract and transfer celestial chakra between hosts. So far, all their attempts have failed, usually killing both donor and recipient. Her voice hardened. That's why I run. Why we all should run. The gravity of her words settled over Naruto like a physical weight. This wasn't just about his own discovery anymore, but something larger, people being hunted. Killed for abilities similar to what he now possessed. We're not running, he said with quiet determination. We're going to find out everything we can about Eclipse, then stop them. Amaya studied him for a long moment. You remind me of stories my grandmother told, about the celestial clan leaders. They had the same certainty, the same resolve. A small smile touched her lips. Perhaps that's why the bloodlines chose to awaken in you. I don't think bloodlines choose anything, Naruto said, embarrassed by the comparison. It's just genetics and circumstance. Is it? She gestured to the moonlit world around them. These powers lay dormant for generations, only to emerge now, when the world faces new threats, new balances of power. Maybe there's more purpose to it than we understand. The philosophical turn of the conversation reminded Naruto of late-night talks with the third Hokage when he was younger. Questions of destiny and choice, of powers greater than individual shinobi. Before he could respond, a subtle shift in the air alerted his senses. The waterfall's rhythm changed slightly, water tension altering in a way that couldn't be natural. Someone's coming, he whispered, rising to his feet. Amaya tensed beside him. Eclipse. They've found us. Naruto moved quietly back into the cave, waking his teammates with hand signals they'd learned in academy. Within seconds, all were alert, weapons ready. How many? Sasuke asked. Sharingan activated. Can't tell yet, Naruto replied. But the water's being manipulated. Amaya created a small sphere of water in her palm, infusing it with her silver chakra. I can sense them through connected water sources. 3, no, 4. Surrounding the cave, We're at a disadvantage in an enclosed space, Shikamaru assessed quickly. We need to draw them into the open where we have more maneuverability. Or we could use the cave to our advantage, Tenten suggested. Funnel them through the narrow entrance. Either way, we need to move now, Sakura said, gathering her medical supplies, before they cut off our exit. As if on cue, the waterfall before the cave entrance suddenly froze solid, ice spreading rapidly across the opening like a living thing. Too late, Sasuke muttered, hands already forming seals. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. The massive flame struck the ice barrier, causing it to crack and steam but not fully melt. The ice reformed almost instantly, thicker than before. They have an ice user, Amaya warned. Water and wind combination. Stand back, Naruto said, stepping forward. He raised his right hand, concentrating on the golden chakra. It responded eagerly, perhaps energized by the danger, forming a brilliant sphere in his palm. He directed it at the ice barrier, not as a wild blast but as a focused beam. Where it struck, the ice didn't just melt, it evaporated instantly, molecules separating under the intense energy. A hole appeared, widening as Naruto maintained the beam, creating an opening large enough for them to exit single file. Go, he urged the others. I'll hold it open. Sasuke went first, then Tenten, followed by Amaya and Sakura. Shikamaru positioned himself behind Naruto, shadows extending from his feet, ready to provide cover. As Naruto prepared to back through the opening he'd created, a voice echoed from deeper within the cave, a section they hadn't explored. Impressive control for one so newly awakened. Naruto and Shikamaru spun to face the darkness beyond their small camp. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man in his 30s with silver-white hair and eyes like polished mirrors, reflecting the firelight without revealing anything behind them. He wore no mask or eclipse insignia, only simple dark clothing that seemed to absorb the light around him. Kagami. Amaya gasped from outside the cave. How did I get behind you? The man smiled, the expression never reaching his reflective eyes. Shadows and reflections are my domain, little moonchild. There is nowhere you can hide from me. Naruto stepped protectively in front of Shikamaru. You're the leader of Eclipse. And you, Kagami's mirrored gaze fixed on Naruto with unsettling intensity, are something I've sought for a very long time. A perfect vessel. Both bloodlines, complete and balanced, housed in a body already adapted to contain immense power. Shikamaru's shadow shot forward, attempting to capture Kagami in his shadow possession jutsu. The Eclipse leader didn't move to avoid it. Instead, he simply fragmented, splitting into 3 identical copies that stepped in different directions. The shadow could only capture one, while the others continued to move freely. An interesting technique, one of the free Kagamis observed, but shadows are merely absence of light. They hold no power over reflections. Naruto, we need to retreat, Shikamaru warned, strain evident in his voice as he tried to maintain his jutsu on the captured reflection. We don't know what he's capable of. Oh, but I know what you're capable of, Sun and Moon Child. All 3 Kagamis spoke in perfect unison, creating an eerie chorus. Or rather, what you will be capable of, once you've been properly refined. Naruto felt a cold anger building inside him, different from the hot rage that typically triggered the Nine Tails chakra. This was focused, deliberate, responding to the threat. This man posed not just to him but to others like Amaya, hunted and experimented on for abilities they never asked for. Golden light bloomed in his right hand, silver in his left. Without conscious thought, he brought them together, creating that perfect sphere of white energy they'd practiced earlier. But this time, instead of directing it outward, he let it surround him completely. The celestial harmony technique enveloped him in brilliant light, illuminating the cave to its furthest recesses. Where the light touched Kagami's reflections, they wavered, becoming translucent, less substantial. Fascinating, the original Kagami murmured, the only one remaining fully solid under the light's effect. You've already learned to harmonize the energies. You truly are the perfect vessel. I'm not a vessel for anything, Naruto replied, his voice steady despite the strain of maintaining the technique. And I won't let you hurt anyone else for these bloodlines. Kagami's expression hardened. Quote, you have no concept of what's truly at stake. These powers weren't meant to be scattered among the unworthy. They must be united, controlled, directed toward their true purpose. And what purpose is that? Shikamaru demanded, his shadow technique still binding one fading reflection. Balance. Kagami's eyes gleamed in the celestial light. The world has fallen into chaos because the powers that should govern it have been diluted. Distributed. Diminished. I will restore what was lost. From outside the cave came sounds of battle, Sasuke and the others engaging what must be Kagami's subordinates. Naruto needed to help them. But he couldn't risk letting Kagami escape. As if reading his thoughts, Kagami smiled again. Don't worry about your friends. This is merely a first meeting, not a final confrontation. I wanted to see you for myself, to confirm what my agents reported. His reflective gaze traveled over Naruto's glowing form. And I must say, you exceed expectations. With a sudden gesture, all three versions of Kagami liquefied, becoming pools of quicksilver that flowed together and then seeped into the cave floor, disappearing entirely. After him, Naruto shouted, dropping the celestial harmony technique and rushing toward where Kagami had vanished. Wait, Shikamaru grabbed his arm. It could be a trap. We need to regroup with the others first. Reluctantly, Naruto nodded, following Shikamaru through the opening in the ice barrier, which was already beginning to close behind them. Outside, they found their teammates standing amid the unconscious forms of three Eclipse agents, skilled shinobi by their gear. But evidently no match for the combined might of Sasuke, Sakura, and Tenten. Amaya stood slightly apart, her water techniques having created restraints around the fallen enemies. Kagami, she asked fearfully, got away, Naruto admitted. But he didn't take anyone with him. He didn't need to, she replied grimly. He saw you. That's all he wanted for now, to confirm what you are. The moonlight that had seemed peaceful earlier now felt exposing, revealing. Naruto looked at his hands, the powers they contained now the target of a dangerous organization by a man with abilities he barely understood. We need to get these Eclipse agents back to Konoha for interrogation, Sasuke said practically. They might have information about their organization's structure, bases, other targets. And we need to move quickly, Tenten added. If Kagami escaped, he might return with reinforcements. As they secured the unconscious agents for transport, Naruto found himself staring at the moon overhead, its silver light seeming to pulse in rhythm with the lunar chakra within him. Something about Kagami's words troubled him deeply, not just the threat they posed, but the certainty behind them. The absolute conviction that these powers had a specific purpose. What are you thinking? Sakura asked, joining him. That this is bigger than we thought, Naruto replied quietly. Kagami talked about these powers like they're meant for something specific, something important. People who hunger for power always justify it with grand purposes, she said wisely. It doesn't make them right. I know. He turned to where Amaya was helping Tenten secure the last agent. But what if there is some truth to it? What if these abilities awaken now for a reason? Sakura followed his gaze. Then we figure it out together, like we always do. One step at a time. Naruto nodded, grateful for her pragmatic optimism. As they prepared to leave the compromised hideout, the first light of dawn appeared on the horizon, golden rays pushing back the silver moonlight, a daily balance restored. Whatever purpose these celestial powers might have, Naruto was determined to discover it on his own terms. Not as Kagami's vessel but as himself, Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf, who had never let destiny dictate his path. The journey back to Konoha would be faster than their outward trip. Driven by urgency and the knowledge that Eclipse would be watching, waiting for their next opportunity. The game had changed, the stakes raised. What had begun as an investigation had become something far more personal, a confrontation with powers and purposes beyond anything they had anticipated. But as the sun rose fully, warming his face and stirring the golden chakra within him, Naruto felt a strange certainty. He was exactly where he needed to be, with exactly the people he needed beside him, facing exactly the challenge he was meant to overcome. The dawn of duality had truly begun. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Eclipse Rising. The journey back to Konoha took half the time of their outward trip, driven by the urgency of their cargo, 3 unconscious Eclipse agents and information that couldn't wait. They traveled in a defensive formation, Sasuke and Tenten taking point while Naruto and Sakura guarded their captives. Shikamaru and Amaya brought up the rear, his shadow Tekken. IQs complementing her water manipulation to secure their backtrail. "They're following us," Sasuke reported on the evening of the first day, Sharingan scanning the darkening forest. "At least 4, keeping their distance. Observing rather than engaging." "Eclipse?" Sakura asked, checking the restraints on their prisoners. "Most likely," Tenten confirmed, having rigged perimeter alarms around their hastily established camp. "Same chakra signatures as the agents we captured." Naruto sat cross-legged near the small, carefully shielded fire, trying to sense any disruptions in the natural energy around them. His heightened awareness since awakening the celestial chakras made him more sensitive to disturbances, though he lacked the refined perception of the Byakugan or Sharingan. "They won't attack," Amaya said with quiet certainty. "Not while Kagami is assessing your abilities." "You seem to understand how he thinks," Shikamaru observed, the statement carrying a subtle question. Amaya met his gaze without flinching. "I was initially recruited, not hunted. I spent 2 weeks with Eclipse before I understood their true intentions." "You were inside their organization." Tenten straightened, suddenly alert. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "Because I'm ashamed of how easily I was deceived." Amaya's hands tightened around her water canteen. "They approached me as researchers, scholars of ancient bloodlines who wanted to help me understand my abilities. It wasn't until I saw their experiments on others that I realized the truth and escaped." "What did you learn while you were there?" Sasuke pressed. "Base locations, hierarchy, numbers. Their main compound is hidden somewhere in the mountains between the land of earth and the land of waterfalls. I never saw it. I was kept at a smaller outpost in the land of rivers." She closed her eyes, recalling details. "Their structure is cellular. Each group operates semi-independently, reporting up through handlers to regional commanders, who answer to Kagami's inner circle. Classic terrorist organization structure," Shikamaru noted. "Limits damage from infiltration or capture." "How many members?" Sakura asked. "I saw perhaps 30 at the outpost. But they spoke of hundreds across the 5 great nations and beyond. Not all are combatants. Many are researchers, medical specialists, intelligence gatherers." Naruto listened intently, piecing together a clearer picture of their adversary. Eclipse wasn't just a small cult fixated on ancient bloodlines, it was a sophisticated organization with resources and reach. "And their goal?" he asked finally. Kagami mentioned balance and true purpose, but what does that actually mean? Amaya's expression darkened. "They believe the world has fallen out of balance because the celestial powers that once governed it have been scattered and diluted. According to their doctrine, these powers were meant to be unified in a single vessel, the perfect unification of sun and moon. Who would then restore harmony to the world? By what means?" Sasuke's tone was skeptical. That's where opinions differed even within Eclipse. Some believed this vessel would be a benevolent guardian, a protector who would guide humanity. She hesitated. Others saw it as a more forceful role, someone who would impose order, eliminate conflict by eliminating choice itself. "Sounds like typical cult nonsense," Tenten muttered. "Ancient prophecies justifying modern power grabs." "Perhaps," Amaya conceded, "but their research has produced real results. They've developed techniques to detect dormant celestial bloodlines, to amplify fractured abilities, even to temporarily transfer certain aspects between compatible hosts." The implications settled heavily over the group. If Eclipse could identify and target those with even traces of these bloodlines, countless people might be at risk, people who might not even know they carried such heritage. "We need to get this information to Lady Tsunade," Sakura said firmly. "She needs to know the scale of what we're dealing with." As if punctuating her statement, one of their captives stirred, eyes fluttering open. The woman, youngest of the 3, with distinctive red markings tattooed around her eyes, assessed her situation with remarkable composure despite being bound and surrounded by enemies. "You're making a mistake," she said, voice raspy from unconsciousness. "All of you." "The mistake was attacking us," Sasuke replied coldly. "Not attacking," the woman corrected. "Evaluating. If we'd wanted to capture your Sun Moon wielder, we would have sent a full tactical team, not a reconnaissance unit." Naruto moved closer, studying her marked face. "You have a name, Rin, formerly of the Hidden Stone Village." "A deserter," Sasuke noted. "A believer," she countered. "I've seen what fractured, unbalanced power does to the world. Endless wars between nations hoarding tailed beasts like weapons. Bloodline purges driven by fear and ignorance. Children slaughtered for abilities they never chose to possess. Her gaze fixed on Naruto. Eclipse offers an alternative. By experimenting on innocent people. Naruto challenged. B. Why hunting down anyone with these bloodlines and using them like test subjects? Something like regret flickered across Rin's face. There have been excesses. Zealots within our ranks who believe the end justifies any means. But Kagami's vision is purer than that. And what exactly is his vision? Shikamaru asked, crouching to her eye level. Balance restored. The natural order re-established. Her eyes took on a fervent gleam. The sun and moon bloodlines were never meant to be separated. Their division thousands of years ago caused a fundamental imbalance that has reverberated through hist. Ori, an imbalance mirrored in the separation of the 10 tails into 9 distinct beasts. Naruto's pulse quickened. What do you know about the tailed beasts? Only what the ancient texts reveal. That they and the celestial bloodlines share an origin point, the divine tree that once connected earth and heaven. Rin's gaze intensified. The same tree that gave rise to the Sage of Six Paths, who divided what should have remained whole. Sakura frowned. That contradicts everything we know about the sage. He's revered as the founder of the ninja world, the one who established peace. History is written by the victorious. Rin replied simply, and some truths are too dangerous to preserve openly. The captive's words echoed uncomfortably with what Yukina had told Naruto before their departure. That the celestial bloodlines and tailed beasts were connected in ways long forgotten. Could there be truth to Eclipse's claims, buried beneath layers of zealotry and ambition? Enough, Sasuke interrupted, clearly impatient with philosophical debate. Save your explanations for Konoha's interrogation specialists. Rin fell silent, but her eyes remained fixed on Naruto, as if trying to convey something beyond words. After a moment, she closed them, slipping back into what appeared to be meditative calm. We should move at first light, Shikamaru decided, eyeing their captives warily. I don't like the idea of Eclipse reinforcements catching up to us in open terrain. As the others prepared for an uneasy night's rest, Naruto found himself unable to settle. The encounter with Kagami, Amaya's revelations, and now Rin's cryptic statements about balance and origin, all of it swirled in his mind, pieces of a puzzle that remained frustratingly incomplete. He moved to the edge of their camp, street, staring up at the night sky where stars glittered between scattered clouds. The moon hung low on the horizon, a perfect half circle, neither full nor new, but balanced between phases. You feel it, don't you? Amaya's voice came softly as she joined him. The pull of questions without answers. I've always had questions, Naruto replied with a wry smile. About the 9 tails, about my parents, about why things happened the way they did. I'm used to it, but these questions feel different, she observed perceptively. Because they're not just about you anymore. They're about something larger, a pattern you've become part of. Naruto considered this. Do you believe what Eclipse teaches? About balance and unified vessels and all that? Amaya was silent for a long moment, her expression thoughtful in the starlight. I believe there are truths in what they claim, buried beneath layers of interpretation and agenda. The celestial bloodlines clearly exist. We're proof of that. Their connection to natural forces is undeniable. She gestured to the half moon. When that rises, my powers strengthen. When the sun is at its zenith, I sense your solar chakra responding, even when you don't call upon it consciously. That doesn't mean we're destined to restore some ancient balance or whatever Kagami believes. No, she agreed. Purpose and destiny are different things. Eclipse confuses the T. Whoa. They believe the purpose of these powers determines the destiny of those who wield them. A small smile touched her lips. But I suspect you've never been one to let destiny dictate your choices. Naruto returned the smile, appreciating her insight. Not according to anyone who knows me. Then perhaps that's why these bloodlines awakened in you specifically. Amaya turned her gaze back to the stars. Perhaps what's needed isn't someone who will fulfill an ancient purpose, but someone who will define a new one. The thought was both empowering and sobering, the idea that these abilities had emerged in him not because he was destined to follow some predetermined path, but because he might forge a different one entirely. Get some rest, she advised, turning back toward the camp. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. As Amaya left, Naruto remained watching the half-moon, feeling the subtle resonance of his lunar chakra responding to its presence. Whatever truth lay behind these powers, whatever purpose they might serve, he was determined to discover it on his own terms, not as Eclipse's perfect vessel, but as himself. The Hidden Leaf Village was a welcome sight as they approached its gates late the following afternoon. Word of their return had evidently preceded them. Tsunade herself waited at the entrance, flanked by Anbu operatives who immediately took custody of the Eclipse prisoners. Report. The Hokage commanded once the captives had been escorted away. Shikamaru stepped forward, delivering a concise summary of their encounter with Amaya, the confrontation with Kagami, and the intelligence they'd gathered about Eclipse's structure and objectives. As he spoke, Tsunade's expression grew increasingly grave. And you believe this organization poses a significant threat? She asked when he had finished. Without question, Shikamaru confirmed. They're well organized, well funded, and driven by zealous belief. More concerning is their apparent ability to identify and track individuals with dormant celestial bloodlines. Tsunade's gaze shifted to Amaya, who stood slightly apart from the group, clearly uncomfortable under the Hokage's scrutiny. And you were with them for a time. 2 weeks, Amaya confirmed, meeting Tsunade's eyes with quiet dignity. I left when I discovered their true methods and intentions. She's been invaluable, Naruto interjected, stepping protectively toward Amaya. Without her, we wouldn't understand half of what we're dealing with. Tsunade's expression softened slightly. I'm not accusing, merely establishing facts. If Eclipse is as sophisticated as you describe, we need to understand their capabilities thoroughly. She gestured toward the Hokage Tower. Come, we'll continue this discussion in my office, away from public ears. As they walked through the village streets, Naruto noticed curious glances directed their way, particularly at Amaya, whose distinctive blue-black hair and water gourd marked her as an outsider. News of their early return would already be circulating, spawning the inevitable rumors and speculation that fueled Konoha's gossip networks. In Tsunade's office, they found Kakashi and Yukina waiting, along with an unexpected addition, Hinata Hyuga, who sat quietly in a corner, fingers pressed together in her characteristic gesture of nervous anticipation. Hinata, Naruto blinked in surprise. What are you doing here? Before she could answer, Tsunade closed the door firmly behind them. Hinata is here at my request. Recent developments have made her involvement necessary. What developments? Sakura asked, concern evident in her voice. Tsunade nodded to Yukina, who stepped forward. 3 days ago, a Hyuga clan elder was approached by individuals asking questions about ancient connections between the Hyuga and something called the Hinata clan. When the elder refused to discuss clan history with outsiders, an attempt was made to abduct him. Eclipse, Sasuke stated flatly. Almost certainly, Yukina confirmed. The attackers used techniques consistent with what we now know of their operatives, specialization in infiltration and extraction rather than direct combat. Was anyone hurt? Naruto asked, glancing at Hinata, who looked pale but composed. The elder is unharmed, Yukina assured him. The Hyuga compound's security prevented the abduction, and the attackers escaped before they could be captured or identified. Which brings us to why Hinata is here, Tsunade continued, gesturing to the young Hyuga heiress. The attack confirmed our suspicions about a connection between the modern Hyuga and the ancient Hinata clan. We've been reviewing sealed clan records, and Hinata has been instrumental in that process. Hinata finally spoke, her voice soft but steadier than Naruto remembered. Our clan archives contain references to the Hinata as our ancestors, before the Byakugan fully manifested as our primary Kekkei Genkai. What kind of references? Tenten asked. Mostly genealogical records and fragmentary accounts, Hinata explained. According to the oldest scrolls, the Hyuga descended from a branch of the Hinata clan that intermarried with another bloodline, gradually developing the Byakugan while losing most of their connection to solar chakra. Most, but not all, Kakashi observed shrewdly. Hinata nodded. There are certain techniques known only to the main family that utilize a form of chakra different from our standard gentle fist approach. Techniques considered too sacred, or perhaps too dangerous, for general use. The implications hung in the air. Unspoken but clear, The Hyuga might still possess aspects of the solar bloodline, dormant but preserved within their secretive clan structure. This is why Eclipse targeted a Hyuga elder, Shikamaru reasoned. They're looking for information about how the bloodlines evolved and dispersed, possibly to track down other descendants or to understand how to fully reawaken dormant traits. Precisely, Tsunade confirmed, which is why we've increased security around the Hyuga compound and placed restrictions on clan members traveling alone outside the village. Throughout this exchange, Amaya had remained silent, observing with evident fascination. Now she stepped forward slightly, addressing Hinata directly. Your eyes, she said, they're not just a dojutsu for seeing chakra networks, are they? They're connected to the celestial bloodlines somehow. Hinata appeared startled by the direct question from a stranger, but answered with quiet certainty. The elders believe the Byac Yugen evolved as the Hinata bloodline's focus shifted from manipulating light to perceiving it in all its forms, including the light of chakra flowing through living beings. Evolutionary specialization, Sakura murmured. The medical researcher in her clearly intrigued. Just as Amaya's lunar bloodline specialized in water manipulation. This is all fascinating from a historical perspective, Sasuke cut in impatiently. But it doesn't address our immediate concern. Eclipse knows about Naruto now. They know he possesses both bloodlines in their complete form. What's to stop them from targeting him directly? Nothing, Tsunade answered bluntly, which is why we're implementing a new training and protection protocol, effective immediately. She unrolled a map of the Fire Country on her desk, pointing to a location deep within its forests. There's an ancient temple here, once used by both the Hinata and Tsukuyomi clans as neutral ground for meditation and training. It's been abandoned for centuries. Its location largely forgotten, but it should still contain artifacts and inscriptions that might help Naruto develop his abilities more rapidly. You want to send him away from the village? Sakura asked, clearly concerned. For training purposes only, with a select team, Tsunade clarified. The temple's remote location provides both security and an environment attuned to celestial chakra, according to the records. Naruto needs to master these abilities as quickly as possible if he's to defend himself against Eclipse. Naruto nodded, understanding the logic but still uneasy. Leaving the village when it might be targeted. Who's coming with me? Kakashi will lead the mission, Tsunade decided. Sakura, Sasuke, and Tenten will accompany you for continued training support. Shikamaru is needed here to help coordinate our intelligence efforts against Eclipse. What about me? Amaya asked quietly. Tsunade regarded her thoughtfully. That depends on you. You're not a leaf shinobi. And you've already provided valuable assistance. You're free to go if you wish, though we can offer protection given that Eclipse is hunting you. I want to continue helping, Amaya said without hesitation. My control over lunar chakra is still developing, and I have nowhere else to go. If you'll permit it, I'd like to join Naruto's training group. And I request permission to join as well, Hinata spoke up. Surprising everyone with her uncharacteristic assertiveness. If the temple contains information about the Hinata clan, it could be valuable to my family. And my Byakugan GHT help identify chakra patterns that others can't perceive. Tsunade considered both requests, then nodded. Granted. You'll depart tomorrow at dawn. Kakashi has the mission details. She fixed each of them with a stern gaze. This is classified as an S-rank mission. The official record will show you're investigating border disturbances to explain your absence. As they left the Hokage's office, Naruto found himself walking beside Hinata, who seemed simultaneously determined and nervous about her unexpected inclusion in the mission. Thanks for volunteering, he said, genuinely appreciative. Your Byakugan will be a huge help. She offered a small smile, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I want to help however I can. And, I'm curious about our clan's connection to your abilities. You used that golden light during training. I could see it affecting your chakra network in ways I've never observed before. You were watching our training sessions? Naruto asked, surprised. The blush deepened, only once or twice, from a distance. I didn't want to intrude, but after sensing that resonance when I gave you the ointment. She trailed off, evidently embarrassed by the admission. Hey, it's okay, he assured her quickly. Actually, I'm glad you were watching. There's something about these abilities that seems connected to the Hyuga somehow. Maybe at the temple, we can figure out exactly what that connection is. Hinata nodded, her expression becoming more composed. That's what I'm hoping. The clan records mention the temple, but much of the information was deliberately obscured or removed over generations. It's as if our ancestors wanted to distance themselves from certain aspects of their heritage. Or protect something they thought was dangerous, Sasuke added, joining their conversation as they descended the tower stairs. Clans often bury their most powerful secrets to prevent misuse. The observation hung between them as they emerged into the late afternoon sunlight. Whatever secrets awaited at the ancient temple, they represented both opportunity and risk. Knowledge that might help Naruto master his new abilities, but might also reveal why such powers had been allowed to fade into legend in the first place. Dawn painted the eastern sky with bands of gold and rose as 6 figures gathered at Konoha's gates, prepared for a journey into the heart of Fire Country's deepest forests. Kakashi, uncharacteristically punctual given the mission's importance, reviewed their route one final time while the others performed last-minute equipment checks. The temple is approximately 3 days' travel at standard pace, he explained, tracing the path on a map. We'll avoid main roads and populated areas. The fewer people who notice our departure or direction, the better. Naruto adjusted his pack, conscious of the extra weight from scrolls Tsunade had entrusted to him. Ancient texts recovered from Konoha's sealed archives, containing fragmentary information about the celestial bloodlines. He'd spent half the night reading them, absorbing what little concrete information they provided amid mystical language and symbolic references. Everyone ready? Kakashi surveyed the group. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, Tenten, Hinata, and Amaya, each chosen for specific skills that complemented their mission objectives. With nods of affirmation, they set off, moving swiftly through the forests surrounding Konoha. As they traveled, they naturally fell into formation, Kakashi and Sasuke leading, their sensory abilities alert for potential threats, Naruto, Hinata, and Amaya in the center. Their valuable bloodlines protected, Sakura and Tenten bringing up the rear, ready to provide support where needed. The first day passed uneventfully, the team maintaining a brisk pace through familiar territory. As evening approached, they established camp in a small clearing, setting watches and speaking in hushed tones around a carefully shielded fire. We should use this time for training, Sasuke suggested practically. Every day Naruto spends developing his abilities makes him less vulnerable to eclipse. Agreed, Kakashi said, but we need to be cautious about chakra signatures that might be detected. Tenten, did you bring those chakra dampening seals? The weapons specialist nodded, unrolling a scroll to reveal intricate sealing formulas. These should contain most of the energy within a 20-meter radius. Not perfect, but better than nothing. While Tenten and Kakashi established the perimeter, Naruto sat cross-legged near the fire, attempting to center himself as Sakura had taught him. The past weeks had seen significant improvement in his ability to access both solar and lunar chakra at will, though maintaining and controlling them still required intense concentration. May I observe with my Byakugan? Hinata asked softly, kneeling beside him. Sure, Naruto agreed, curious about what she might see. Hinata activated her Kekkei Genkai, the veins around her eyes becoming pronounced as her vision shifted to perceive chakra networks. Try accessing your solar chakra first, she suggested. Just a small amount. Naruto nodded, extending his right hand and focusing on the familiar sensation of warmth and brilliance. Golden light bloomed in his palm, illuminating their faces in its gentle radiance. Remarkable, Hinata breathed, her Byakugan tracking the flow of energy through his body. It's not moving through your standard chakra pathways at all. It's using a secondary network, like rivers flowing alongside the main channels but never quite merging with them. Is that unusual? Amaya asked, watching with evident fascination. Very, Hinata confirmed. Most Kekkei Genkai utilize the same chakra pathways as normal techniques, just combining elements or accessing them differently. This is a completely separate system. Can you see where it originates? Sakura joined them, her medical expertise making her particularly interested in the physiological aspects. Hinata focused more intently, her Byakugan penetrating deeper. It seems to center. Here, she touched a point just below Naruto's sternum, above his navel where the Nine-Tails seal was located. A cluster of channels that aren't connected to your standard chakra network. Above the Nine-Tails seal, Sakura noted thoughtfully, as if deliberately separated from it. Try the lunar chakra now, Sasuke suggested, having returned from setting traps around their perimeter. Naruto released the golden light and focused instead on the cool, reflective energy of his lunar chakra. Silver light appeared in his left hand, casting different shadows across their faces. This one comes from the same cluster, Hinata observed, but follows a different pathway through your body. It's almost like, she hesitated, searching for the right words, like they're deliberately balanced against each other, maintaining separation while sharing an origin point. Both connected to the same source, yet distinct in nature and function, Kakashi summarized, returning to the group. Consistent with what the scrolls describe about celestial chakra being fundamental. Why different from standard ninja techniques? Can you try combining them? Hinata asked. I'd like to see what happens to the pathways when you create that white energy sphere. Naruto nodded, bringing both hands together and focusing on harmonizing the opposing energies. The golden and silver light merged, forming a perfect sphere of brilliant white between his palms. Hinata gasped, momentarily overwhelmed by what her Byakugan revealed. The pathways are resonating, vibrating at frequencies that synchronize perfectly. I've never seen anything like it. What about the Nine-Tails chakra? Sasuke asked the question they were all thinking. Is there any interaction? Hinata shifted her focus to the seal on Naruto's abdomen. The Nine-Tails chakra is responding, but not merging. It's like it recognizes the celestial energy but remains distinct from it. Interesting, Kakashi mused. The scrolls mention a relationship between tailed beasts and celestial chakra, but they're frustratingly vague about specifics. Maybe because it varies depending on the individual and the beast, Amaya suggested. Eclipse's research indicated different tailed beasts responded differently to celestial chakra exposure. Naruto maintained the white sphere a moment longer before releasing the technique, feeling the familiar drain that accompanied its use. Despite weeks of practice, combining both energies still taxed him significantly. You're improving, Sakura noted encouragingly. The sphere was more stable this time, and you held it longer. Still not combat ready, Naruto admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. If Kagami attacked right now, I'd be at a disadvantage after using that technique. That's why we train, Sasuke said with characteristic bluntness. And why you have us. The simple statement, coming from someone as reserved as Sasuke, carried weight that brought a smile to Naruto's face. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he wouldn't face them alone. As night deepened around their camp, the group settled into watches, with Kakashi taking the first shift. Naruto found himself unable to sleep despite his fatigue, his mind processing the day's revelations about his unique chakra pathways. He sat up, watching the stars overhead, counting constellations as he'd done countless times as a lonely child. Can't sleep. Amaya's voice came softly from nearby. She sat with her back against a tree, her water gourd beside her, silver moonlight reflecting off its polished surface. Too much to think about, Naruto admitted, moving to join her. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the night sky. Eventually, Amaya spoke again, her voice thoughtful. There's something I've been wondering since meeting your friends, she said. They all seem to have accepted these new abilities of yours without much question. Is that normal for them? Naruto chuckled softly. I guess when you've been through what we have together, ancient bloodlines suddenly awakening doesn't seem that strange anymore. What have you been through? She asked, genuine curiosity in her tone. For the next hour, Naruto shared stories of Team 7's formation, their early missions, the Chunin exams, Sasuke's defection and return, and the countless challenges they'd overcome together. As he spoke, he realized how much these shared experiences had forged bonds that transcended ordinary friendship, bonds that made his teammates the perfect allies for confronting whatever lay ahead. You're fortunate, Amaya said when he'd finished, to have people who stand beside you not out of duty or circumstance, but out of genuine choice. What about you? Naruto asked. You mentioned your village was destroyed. Do you have anyone left? A shadow passed over her face. No. The flood that triggered my abilities was the same one that swept away my home. I was the only survivor, saved by powers I didn't understand and couldn't control. I'm sorry, Naruto said softly, understanding all too well the pain of isolation. It's why Eclipse's approach was initially so appealing, she continued, staring into the darkness. They offered answers, community, purpose. It wasn't until I saw the pre-CE of those things that I understood the true nature of their generosity. What did you see? Naruto asked, sensing there was more to her story than she'd previously shared. Amaya was silent for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a boy, younger than us, perhaps 12. He had traces of the sun bloodline, just enough to create small flames that burned gold instead of red. Eclipse was experimenting on him, trying to amplify his abilities through chakra infusions from other subjects. When I discovered this, I tried to help him escape. Her hands clenched tightly. We almost made it, but Kagami himself intercepted us at the perimeter. He did something with his reflection technique, created a mirror image of the boy that turned against us. Confused us long enough for guards to recapture him. And you escaped alone, Naruto finished gently. She nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. I've never forgiven myself for that. For leaving him behind. His name was Hiro, and sometimes I still hear him calling for help in my dreams. Without thinking, Naruto placed his hand over hers. We'll find him, he promised. After we learn what we can at the temple, after I've mastered these abilities better, we'll find Eclipse's main compound and free everyone they're holding. Amaya looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and skepticism. Just like that, you'd risk everything for people you've never met. That's what these powers are for, Naruto said with simple conviction. At least, that's what they're for to me. Not balance or destiny or any of that. Just protecting people who need protecting. A small smile touched Amaya's lips. No wonder the Bloodlines chose you. They didn't choose anyone, Naruto insisted. They're just abilities, not conscious forces. Are you sure about that? She asked, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. The way they respond to your emotions, your intentions, it's Summit. Seems like more than mere technique. Before Naruto could respond, a subtle shift in the air alerted his senses. He turned to see Hinata approaching quietly, her Byakugan activated. Someone's coming, she said without preamble. 2 kilometers northeast, moving fast. 5 chakra signatures, all Jonin level or higher. Naruto and Amaya were on their feet instantly, moving to wake the others. Within moments, the entire team was alert, breaking camp with practiced efficiency. Eclipse, Sasuke asked, Sharingan scanning the darkness. Likely, Kakashi confirmed, having dispatched a shadow clone to scout ahead. The question is how they found us so quickly. They might have been tracking us since we left Konoha, Tenten suggested, sealing their supplies into scrolls. Or they placed a Acker on one of us during the previous encounter, Sakura added, quickly checking everyone for unfamiliar chakra signatures or seals. It doesn't matter now, Naruto decided. We need to move. Should we change our route? Kakashi considered briefly. No, if they've tracked us this far, changing direction won't help much. Better to proceed to the temple as directly as possible. It's defensible ground according to the records, and may offer resources we need. They set off immediately, moving through the darkened forest with increased urgency. Hinata's Byakugan provided constant updates on their pursuers, who maintained a steady pace behind them, neither gaining nor losing ground. They're not trying to catch us, Shikamaru observed as dawn approached. Just keeping us in range. Like they're hurting us, or waiting for reinforcements, Sasuke suggested grimly. Either way, we don't let them dictate the terms of engagement, Kakashi decided. Naruto, conserve your strength. If we have to fight, we'll need your standard techniques more than the celestial abilities you're still mastering. Naruto nodded, understanding the wisdom in Kakashi's instruction. Despite his progress, his new Nari remained less reliable than his well-practiced shadow clones and Rasengan, techniques that had seen him through countless battles. They traveled through the day without stopping, pushing their pace to the limits of endurance. By late afternoon, they'd entered a region of the forest unknown to most of them, ancient trees towering overhead, their massive trunks covered in moss and vines that hadn't been disturbed in decades. We're getting close, Kakashi announced as they paused briefly beside a stream to refill water containers. The temple should be just beyond that ridge. Hinata scanned ahead with her Byakugan. I see stone structures, partially reclaimed by the forest. And something else. The ground beneath the temple is laced with channels, like veins carrying chakra. The temple was built at a convergence point. Amaya explained, recalling information from Eclipse's research. A place where natural energy flows more abundantly from the earth. Perfect for amplifying celestial chakra, Sakura noted. And probably why it was chosen as neutral ground by both clans. Our pursuers? Sasuke asked Hinata, still following, about 5 kilometers back. But they've changed formation, Hinata reported, frowning slightly. Spreading out in a wide arc, as if to surround the temple area. They're planning to cut off our retreat, Kakashi assessed quickly. We need to reach the temple before they complete their encirclement. They moved with renewed urgency, traversing the final distance to the ridge. As they crested it, the ancient temple complex came into view below, a series of stone structures arranged in concentric circles around a central pavilion. Despite centuries of abandonment, the buildings remained largely intact, protected by both their sturdy construction and what appeared to be preservation seals still faintly glowing on cornerstones. It's beautiful, Sakura murmured, taking in the sight of weathered stone harmoniously integrated with the surrounding forest. As if architecture and nature had reached an understanding over the centuries. And defensible, Sasuke noted more practically, analyzing sight lines and access points with a strategist's eye. They descended swiftly into the valley, approaching the temple's outer ring, a circular wall with 4 gates oriented to the cardinal directions. The eastern gate stood before them, its massive stone arch carved with symbols representing the rising sun. Wait, Amaya cautioned as they neared the entrance. The records mentioned guardians are tests for those seeking to enter sacred spaces. Kakashi nodded, examining the arch carefully. There are seal formulas embedded in the stone, but they're unlike any I've seen before. Naruto stepped forward, drawn to the archway by an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As he approached, golden light began to emanate from the carved sun symbols, responding to his presence. It recognizes the solar chakra, Hinata observed, her Byakugan tracking the energy flow. The seals are activating, but not defensively. Experimentally, Naruto placed his right hand against the central keystone. Golden light spread from his palm, flowing into the ancient seal formulas. Illuminating them from within, the stone rumbled slightly, and inscriptions previously invisible began to glow along the archway. What does it say? Tenten asked. Weepo. NS ready in case the activation triggered defenses. It's an old dialect, Kakashi said, studying the glowing text, but roughly translated. Child of light, enter freely with those you deem worthy. The sun gates open to your touch. For dawn follows even the darkest night. So the temple recognizes Naruto as having the Hinata bloodline, Sakura summarized. That's a good sign. Let's not celebrate yet, Sasuke cautioned. Glancing back toward the ridge. Our pursuers will reach this valley within the hour. Then let's get inside and secure the perimeter, Kakashi decided. Naruto, lead the way since the temple responds to you. Naruto nodded, passing through the archway with his companions following closely. As the last of them entered, the golden light in the seal formulas pulsed once and then faded to a subtle glow. Maintaining the activation but reducing its visibility from a distance. Inside the outer wall, they found themselves in a wide circular courtyard filled with stone monuments and meditation platforms arranged in patterns that seemed to track the sun's daily journey across the sky. The central pavilion rose before them, a multi-tiered structure with a domed roof top. By a crystal sphere that caught the late afternoon sunlight, scattering it in golden patterns across the courtyard. We should check the other gates, Sasuke suggested. Make sure they're secure. Agreed, Kakashi nodded. Sasuke, take Tenten and verify the northern gate. Sakura, you and Hinata check the western. I'll examine the southern entrance. Naruto and Amaya, begin exploring the central pavilion. It likely contains the information we came for. As the team separated to their assigned tasks, Naruto and Amaya approached the central structure. Unlike the eastern gate that had responded to solar chakra, the pavilion's entrance bore symbols of both sun and moon intertwined in complex patterns. This part was designed for someone who could wield both bloodlines, Amaya observed, studying the intricate carvings. Rare even in ancient times, according to the records. Naruto placed his hands against the double doors, right hand on the sun symbol, left on the moon. Both golden and silver light emerged simultaneously, flowing into the respective patterns. The doors responded immediately, swinging inward with surprising smoothness despite centuries of disuse. Inside, they found a large chamber dominated by a shallow pool in its center. The domed ceiling was open at its apex, allowing sunlight to stream down onto the water's surface, which reflected it with unnatural brilliance. Along the walls, shelves held scrolls and artifacts, remarkably preserved within what appeared to be protective barriers of faint chakra. "This is amazing," Naruto breathed, taking in the chamber's peaceful atmosphere. Despite the urgency of their situation, the space seemed to inspire calm, as if time moved differently within its confines. "It's a synchronization chamber," Amaya explained, recognizing the layout from descriptions in Eclipse's research. "A place where wielders of celestial chakra could attune themselves to natural energy flows and refine their abilities." She approached the pool, studying the intricate patterns carved into its stone rim. "These are training sequences, forms and movements designed to develop control over specific aspects of the bloodlines." Naruto joined her, tracing the carvings with his fingers. As he touched each sequence, faint impressions formed in his mind, muscle memories that weren't his own, yet felt somehow familiar, as if his body recognized movements it had never performed. "I think I understand these," he said, surprised. "It's like they're showing me how to." His words cut off as a pulse of chakra rippled through the chamber. Outside, they heard the distant sound of combat. "They're here," Amaya said tensely. Sooner than expected, they rushed back outside to find Kakashi engaged with two Eclipse operatives at the southern gate, LLED shinobi in dark clothing with the Eclipse emblem emblazoned on their shoulders. Despite their coordinated attacks, Kakashi was holding his ground, his experience and copied techniques keeping them at bay. Across the courtyard, similar scenes unfolded at the other gates. Sasuke and Tenten defending the northern entrance against 3 attackers, while Sakura and Hinata held the western gate against 2 more. They hit all access points simultaneously, Naruto observed, quickly assessing the situation. "Except the eastern gate," Amaya finished. "Where we entered." They turned to C5F. Figures walking calmly through the still open eastern entrance, 4 Eclipse operatives flanking a central figure that Naruto recognized immediately, Kagami, his mirrored eyes reflecting the golden glow of the activated gateway. "Right on schedule," the Eclipse leader commented, surveying the temple grounds with evident satisfaction. "You've done well, activating the outer seals for us. Saved us considerable time and effort. You used us," Naruto realized, anger building inside him. "You herded us here, knowing I could open the gates that Eclipse couldn't breach." "Efficiency, not deception," Kagami corrected smoothly. "You needed to come here to learn about your abilities. We needed access to the temple's secrets. Our goals temporarily aligned. What do you want with this place?" Amaya demanded, her hands already moving to access her water gourd. "The same thing you do, knowledge." Kagami gestured to the surrounding structures. "This temple contains the last complete records of how the celestial bloodlines function and interact. Records that will help me complete what I began decades ago." "Which is what, exactly?" Naruto challenged, buying time as he sensed his teammates gradually disengaging from their separate battles, moving to regroup. Kagami smiled, the expression never reaching his reflective eyes. "The restoration of what was sundered. The rejoining of powers that should never have been separated." He studied Naruto with clinical interest. "You've already begun the process, though you don't understand its significance. Both bloodlines, housed in a single vessel, beginning to harmonize." "I'm not a vessel," Naruto said firmly, "and these abilities don't define who I am or what I'll do with them." Such charming naivety, Kagami sighed. As if wielding primordial forces were a matter of personal choice rather than cosmic necessity. As he spoke, Naruto's teammates converged around him and Amaya, forming a defensive perimeter. The Eclipse operatives who had the other gates regrouped similarly behind Kagami, creating a tense standoff in the temple courtyard. "You're outnumbered," Kakashi observed calmly, though Naruto could see the subtle signs of fatigue from his recent combat. "And this ground responds to Naruto, not to you. Numbers are irrelevant when quality differs so dramatically," Kagami replied with casual arrogance. As for the temple's allegiance, he raised his hands, and his body suddenly shimmered, splitting into 3 perfect copies that stepped apart from one another. I have methods of confusing even the most ancient recognition systems. Naruto had seen this technique during their first encounter, but now, in the temple courtyard bathed in late afternoon light, he noticed something his earlier panic had obscured. EAC. H reflection cast a slightly different shadow, as if the light interacted differently with each copy. Hinata, he whispered, can you see which is the real one? She activated her Byakugan, studying the 3 identical figures. Their chakra networks are identical, she reported with evident frustration. All 3 appear equally real. Because they are, Amaya explained tensely. His reflection technique doesn't create illusions but actual temporary duplicates, each with a fraction of his power and consciousness. Sasuke's Sharingan spun as he analyzed the technique. Interesting. Not clones in the traditional sense. More like fragments of the same entity, temporarily operating independently. Enough observation. All 3 Kagamis spoke in unison, their voices creating an unsettling harmonic effect. We didn't come here to fight, but to collect what belongs to Eclipse by right of purpose. And what exactly is that? Sakura demanded. The Celestial Codex, the Central Kagami answered. A record of all techniques, forms, and applications of both bloodlines, compiled by the last practitioners before the clans separated and their knowledge was divided. Naruto felt a chill run through him. Such information in Eclipse's hands could accelerate their experiments, potentially allowing them to forcibly awaken or transfer bloodline abilities with greater success. Whatever this codex is, you're not getting it, he declared, golden chakra beginning to glow around his right hand, silver around his left. How do you plan to stop us? The Kagamis asked in unison. You've barely begun to understand your abilities. While I've spent decades refining mine. Without warning, all 3 Kagamis blurred into motion, attacking from different angles. The Eclipse operatives moved simultaneously, engaging Naruto's companions to prevent them from interfering. The courtyard erupted into combat. Kakashi faced 2 operatives, his Sharingan predicting their movements but his stamina already taxed from the earlier fight. Sasuke and Sakura fought back to back against 3 more, her precise chakra-enhanced strikes complementing his fire techniques. Tenten provided covering fire from a higher position, her scrolls unleashing waves of weapons that forced the Eclipse agents to constantly defend. Hinata and Amaya protected each other's flanks, the gentle fist techniques working in surprising harmony with water manipulation. Naruto found himself confronting all 3 Kagamis at once, their coordinated attacks coming from multiple angles with perfect synchronization. He created shadow clones to even the odds. But the Kagamis simply ignored the duplicates, focusing all attention on the original, somehow able to distinguish him despite the perfect replication of his technique. Your standard ninja arts won't avail you here, one Kagami taunted, effortlessly dodging a Rasengan that shattered a stone monument behind him. Only celestial chakra can truly affect a reflection. Testing the theory, Naruto channeled solar chakra into his right hand, forming a compressed sphere of golden energy. When he launched it at the nearest Kagami, the Eclipse leader attempted to dodge, but the energy followed him. Drawn to his form like a magnet to metal, the golden sphere struck Kagami's shoulder, and for a brief moment, his reflection technique wavered, the 3 forms momentarily merging before separating again. A look of surprise crossed his features, quickly replaced by calculating interest. So you have learned something of your heritage, the Central Kagami acknowledged. But knowledge without mastery is merely potential unrealized. All 3 Kagamis formed identical hand seals, then thrust their palms toward the ground. Reflection style. Mirror world inversion. The stone beneath Naruto's feet suddenly rippled like disturbed water. Before he could react, his own reflection rose from the polished surface, solidifying into a perfect duplicate that attacked with his own face and form. Unlike his shadow clones, this mirror self moved with opposite coordination. When Naruto stepped right, it stepped left. When he raised his right hand, it raised its left. Fight yourself, the Kagamis commanded in unison. Experience the perfect counter to every technique, every movement, every thought. Naruto found himself in the bizarre position of battling his own reflection, It anticipated his standard attacks with perfect precision. Each time he formed a Rasengan, his mirror self created an identical counter-rotating sphere that neutralized it on contact. When he created shadow clones, the reflection spawned its own duplicates in equal number. Across the courtyard, his companions faced similar challenges, each suddenly confronted by their own mirror images emerging from reflective surfaces. Only Amaya seemed able to disrupt the technique, her lunar-infused water dissolving the reflections it touched like salt-melting ice. "Naruto," she called, seeing his struggle. "Lunar chakra disrupts reflections. It's why Kagami needs the codex. His technique is incomplete without understanding both bloodlines." Understanding flashed through Naruto's mind. He'd been approaching the fight conventionally, relying on techniques he'd mastered rather than the new abilities still unfamiliar to him. But this battle couldn't be won with familiar methods. He focused inward, wing on the silver lunar chakra that responded to his protective instincts. Rather than forming it into a barrier as he'd done previously, he let it flow over his entire body, creating a thin layer of moonlight-like energy that clung to his skin and clothes. When his reflection attacked again, its hand passed through Naruto's lunar-charged form as if striking water, the mirror technique unable to maintain coherence against its opposite nature. "Now," Kakashi shouted from across the courtyard, having noticed Naruto's success. "Push the advantage while they're surprised." All three Kagamis frowned in unison, clearly not expecting this development. They adjusted their strategy, abandoning the mirror self technique and instead combining their efforts to create a larger, more complex jutsu. Reflection style. Prismatic division. They intoned together, their hands forming seals Naruto had never seen before. The air itself seemed to fracture, splitting into visible facets like a shattered mirror suspended in space. Within each fragment, different versions of reality played out simultaneously, some showing Naruto and his friends victorious, others displaying their defeat, still others revealing outcomes too strange to comprehend. An area genjutsu, Sasuke warned, his Sharingan struggling to distinguish truth from fabrication amid the kaleidoscopic assault on their senses. "Don't trust what you see." Naruto closed his eyes, relying on his other senses and the distinct feel of celestial chakra flowing through his secondary network. In the chamber earlier, he'd begun to understand the temple's design harmonized with these energies. Now, standing in the courtyard with ancient stones beneath his feet, he felt a similar resonance, as if the entire complex were a tool designed to amplify and direct celestial power. Acting on instinct, he channeled both solar and lunar chakra simultaneously, not combining them as before but directing them downward into the temple grounds. Golden and silver light spread from his feet, flowing along channels carved into the stone floor that had been invisible until activated. The entire courtyard illuminated with intricate patterns, a massive seal formula encompassing the full temple complex. Where the light touched Kagami's prismatic technique, the false realities shattered, forced back into singular truth by the temple's ancient power. "The synchronization array," Amaya gasped, recognizing the patterns from Eclipse's fragmentary records. "You've activated it." The three Kagamis retreated to defensive positions, their expressions shifting from confidence to wary calculation. The Eclipse operatives did likewise, disengaging from their individual battles to regroup around their leader. "Impressive," the central Kagami acknowledged, studying the glowing patterns with evident fascination. "You're more attuned to this place than anticipated. The Bloodlines recognize you as their rightful wielder." "Which means you don't belong here," Naruto replied, maintaining the flow of celestial chakra into the temple's array. The effort taxed him considerably, but he felt something supporting him, as if the temple itself were amplifying his abilities, reducing the strain of channeling both energies simultaneously. "Perhaps not yet," Kagami conceded with unsettling equanimity. "But temporary setbacks are part of any significant endeavor." He turned to his subordinates. "We've confirmed what we came to verify. That's enough for now. You're retreating?" Sasuke asked skeptically, clearly suspecting a trap. Tactically withdrawing, Kagami corrected. "There will be other opportunities, other temples, other secrets to uncover." His mirrored gaze returned to Naruto. "And your development proceeds exactly as prophesied, Sun and Moon child. Every step you take toward mastery brings my ultimate goal closer to realization." Before anyone could respond to this cryptic statement, all three versions of Kagami dissolved into quicksilver that flowed together, reforming into a single entity. The Eclipse leader made a final hand seal, and he and his operatives vanished in a flash of reflected light, a teleportation technique unlike any Naruto had seen before. Is everyone all right? Kakashi asked, scanning the group for injuries. A quick assessment revealed minor wounds but nothing serious. The temple's activation had apparently disrupted whatever technique Kagami had been preparing, forcing his retreat before the full battle could unfold. They'll be back, Sasuke said grimly, deactivating his Sharingan to conserve chakra. Yes, but not immediately, Sakura reasoned. They clearly didn't expect Naruto to activate the temple's defenses so quickly. They'll need to reassess. Naruto gradually released the flow of chakra into the temple array, the golden and silver patterns fading to subtle outlines in the stone. As the power receded, fatigue washed over him, and he sat heavily on a nearby meditation platform. That was, he searched for words, different. I could feel the temple responding, like it was designed to work with these abilities specifically. It was, Amaya confirmed, joining him with a water canteen. The Sei temples were created as training grounds where wielders could develop their abilities in harmony with natural energy flows. The patterns you activated are part of a system designed to amplify and direct celestial chakra for various purposes. Like what? Tenten asked, collecting weapons she'd scattered across the courtyard during the battle. Training, meditation, healing, defense. Amaya gestured to the surrounding structures. Each building likely serves a specific function related to different aspects of the bloodlines. Hinata approached, her Byakugan still active. The channels Bene, ATH the temple are flowing more strongly now, she reported. Like Naruto's activation woke something that had been dormant. Which brings us back to our original purpose, Kakashi reminded them. NDING information about these bloodlines and how Naruto can master them more effectively. He turned to the central pavilion. Kagami mentioned a celestial codex. If it contains what he claimed, it would be invaluable to our efforts. And dangerous in Eclipse's hands, Sasuke added. We should secure it immediately. First, we need to establish proper defenses, Kakashi decided. Kagami's tactical withdrawal doesn't mean we're safe. Eclipse operatives could still be monitoring the temple from a distance. They spent the next hour securing the perimeter, with Tenten setting additional traps and alarm seals around all 4 gates. Sasuke and Kakashi established patrol routes, while Sakura treated the minor injuries sustained during the brief but intense battle. As twilight descended over the temple complex, Naruto returned to the central pavilion with Hinata and Amaya. The chamber they'd discovered earlier had changed subtly. The pool in the center now glowed with faint luminescence that shifted between gold and silver as if responding to the transition from day to night. The temple is attuned to celestial cycles, Amaya explained, watching the changing patterns in the water. Dawn, noon, dusk, midnight. Each time has its own significance for different aspects of the bloodlines. Hinata moved along the chamber's perimeter, her Byakugan examining the shelves of scrolls and artifacts. There's a section here with stronger chakra preservation seals, she noted, pointing to an alcove partially concealed behind a stone pillar. Something important is being protected with particular care. They approached the alcove, finding a small stone chest resting on a pedestal. The chest bore the same intertwined sun and moon symbols as the pavilion's entrance, inlaid with what appeared to be gold and silver. This might be it, Naruto said, examining the chest without touching it. The codex Kagami mentioned. Only one way to find out, Amaya suggested. Try opening it the same way you opened the pavilion doors. Naruto placed his hands on the chest, right over the sun, left over the moon. As before, golden and silver light flowed from his palms into the respective symbols. The chest responded with a soft click, its lid rising slightly on hidden hinges. Inside, they found not a single scroll as expected, but a collection of small crystal discs, each about the size of a palm. Inscribed with intricate patterns that caught the fading light from the ceiling aperture. Memory crystals, Amaya breathed, clearly recognizing the artifacts. Eclipse researchers theorized about these but had never found intact specimens. They're said to contain not just information but experiences, memories and knowledge that can be directly accessed by those with compatible chakra. How do they work? Naruto asked, carefully lifting one of the discs. It felt unexpectedly warm against his skin, pulsing slightly as if responding to his touch. According to the legends, you channel celestial chakra into them while maintaining physical contact, she explained. The crystal then shares its contents directly with your consciousness. Naruto examined the crystal disc more closely. Unlike the chest that had required both solar and lunar chakra to open, this particular crystal was inscribed predominantly with sun patterns, suggesting it might respond specifically to solar energy. I want to try, he decided, sitting cross-legged beside the pool where the light was strongest. This could be exactly what we need to understand these abilities better. Be careful, Hinata cautioned, kneeling beside him. Ancient techniques like this might have unforeseen effects. Naruto nodded, appreciating her concern. I'll start with just a small amount of chakra. If anything feels wrong, I'll stop immediately. He held the crystal disc in his right hand and focused on his solar chakra, allowing golden light to flow gently into the artifact. The disc responded instantly, its inscribed patterns illuminating from within. The light intensified, spreading up Naruto's arm and enveloping his body in a golden aura. For a moment, nothing else happened. Then, without warning, Naruto's consciousness seemed to detach from his physical form. The pavilion, Hinata, and Amaya faded from his awareness, replaced by a cascade of images, sensations, and knowledge flowing directly into his mind. He was standing in the same temple courtyard, but restored to its original glory, stones unmarked by time, colors vibrant, the entire complex alive with activity. People in traditional clothing moved purposefully between buildings, many with faint auras of gold or silver surrounding them. A man approached, tall and dignified, with eyes that shone like the midday sun and ceremonial robes bearing the emblem of the Hinata clan. Though Naruto had never seen him before, he somehow knew his name, Hiroshi, head of the Hinata clan during the era when the temple was constructed. The solar pathway begins with stillness. Hiroshi spoke directly to Naruto, though it became clear he was experiencing a preserved memory rather than actual interaction. Not the stillness of inaction, but the centered calm from which all purpose flows. Hiroshi demonstrated a series of movements, not quite martial forms but something more fundamental, like physical meditations designed to align body and spirit with solar energy. As Naruto watched, understanding flowed into him directly, bypassing normal learning processes. The scene shifted. He was now in a training area, observing as Hiroshi instructed younger clan members in controlling solar chakra. The techniques were revealed not as abstract concepts but as lived experiences, muscle memory, chakra flow patterns, the distinct sensations of different applications of solar energy. The sun does not simply illuminate, Hiroshi explained to his students, it vivifies. It brings life, growth, transformation. So too must your techniques serve purposes beyond mere destruction. The true mastery of solar chakra lies not in how brightly you burn, but in what you nurture with your light. More scenes unfolded, each imparting specific knowledge about the solar bloodline, how to maintain techniques with minimal energy expenditure, how to adapt solar chakra for healing rather than combat, how to harmonize with natural energy flows to amplify effects. Throughout it all, one theme remained constant: balance. The solar techniques, for all their power, were presented as one half of a greater whole, incomplete without their lunar counterparts, yet perfect in their own distinct nature. With a gentle transition, Naruto found himself returning to his physical awareness. The crystal disc in his hand had dimmed, its stored memories temporarily exhausted. He blinked, read Justy, into the pavilion chamber where Hinata and Amaya watched him with evident concern. You've been completely still for almost 20 minutes, Hinata told him, relief evident in her voice. Your chakra network was active, but you weren't responding to us. It was. Naruto searched for words to describe the experience, like living someone else's memories. I saw the temple as it was originally, earned techniques directly from the head of the Hinata clan. The crystals contain the actual experiences of ancient practitioners, Amaya said with wonder. Not just information but embodied knowledge. Naruto carefully returned the crystal to the chest, noticing that the others, some inscribed with moon patterns, others with combined symbols, remained untouched. There's so much here, it would take weeks to absorb it all. But we don't have weeks, came Kakashi's voice from the pavilion entrance. He and the others had joined them, having completed the perimeter security. Eclipse will regroup and return, possibly with reinforcements. Then we take what we can, Naruto decided, gesturing to the chest. These crystals are the codex Kagami wanted, preserved knowledge of both bloodlines. If I can absorb even a fraction of what they contain, it might give us an advantage. And if we remove them from the temple? Sasuke asked practically. Will they function elsewhere? The records didn't specify, Amaya admitted. But they're self-contained artifacts, not dependent on the temple's energy as far as I know. We should divide our efforts, Kakashi suggested. Naruto can work with the memory crystals while the rest of us explore the temple for additional information and maintain security. The more we learn before Eclipse returns, the better prepared we'll be. As the others disperse, to begin a systematic exploration of the temple complex, Naruto remained in the central chamber with the crystal chest, contemplating the knowledge it contained. His first experience had focused on basic principles of solar chakra, fundamental but incomplete. There was clearly much more to learn about both bloodlines and how they interacted. Evening deepened into night outside the pavilion's open dome. As moonlight replaced sunlight streaming into the chamber, the pool's illumination shifted fully to silver. Naruto selected a second crystal, this one inscribed predominantly with lunar patterns, and prepared himself for another journey into ancient memories. This time, he channeled lunar chakra into the disk, watching as silver light spread up his arm. Again, his consciousness detached, transported into preserved experiences from centuries past. The temple appeared again, but now bathed in moonlight, its atmosphere serene and contemplative where the solar memories had been vibrant and active. A woman stood before him, tall and graceful with eyes like polished silver, her robes bearing the crescent moon emblem of the Tsukuyomi clan. Mizuki, Naruto somehow knew, head of the Tsukuyomi clan during the temple's golden age. Quote, "The lunar pathway begins with reflection," she instructed, her voice calm as still water. Not mere imitation, but the deep understanding that comes from seeing yourself in all things. And all things in yourself. Like Hiroshi before her, Mizuki demonstrated forms and techniques, but where the solar practices had been direct and purposeful, these lunar movements emphasized flow, adaptation, and harmony with one's surroundings. The knowledge transferred directly into Naruto's consciousness, providing instant understanding of principles that might have taken years to master through conventional training. The moon does not generate light but reflects it, transforming harsh brilliance into gentle illumination, Mizuki explained to students gathered around her. So too must your techniques transform energy rather than simply generating it. Barriers, reflections, inversions, these are the domains of lunar chakra. The scenes progressed, revealing locations Naruto had never considered. Lunar chakra used to create perfect disguises by reflecting one's surroundings, barriers that not only blocked attacks but redirected their energy, techniques are calming turbulent emotions or inducing peaceful sleep. As with the solar memories, balance remained a consistent theme, the lunar bloodline presented as complementary to its solar counterpart, Nethi. Are complete without the other yet perfect in its distinct nature. When Naruto returned to awareness this time, he found Sakura sitting across from him, monitoring his condition with medical attention. Your chakra network is adapting, she informed him, hands glowing with diagnostic energy. The secondary pathways Hinata observed are expanding, becoming more established with each crystal you use. It feels like they're awakening pathways that were always there, Naruto explained, just dormant until now. Fascinating from a medical perspective, Sakura noted. Most Kekkei Genkai manifest through existing chakra networks. Yours is actually creating new pathways specific to these energies. Naruto carefully returned the lunar crystal to the chest, feeling both mentally invigorated and physically drained. The knowledge transfer was efficient but taxing, requiring intense concentration to properly integrate. How long was I under this time? He asked, stretching stiff muscles. About 30 minutes, Sakura replied. The others have been exploring the temple complex. They've found training halls, meditation chambers, and an underground library with conventional scrolls that complement the crystal memories. Any sign of eclipse? Not yet, but Hinata's been monitoring the surrounding area with her Byakugan. She can't maintain it constantly, but we're taking shifts to keep watch. Naruto nodded, glancing at the remaining crystals in the chest. Each represented portions of knowledge and experience he would need to master these bloodlines fully. Time was the limiting factor, both. how long they could safely remain at the temple and how quickly he could absorb the preserved memories without overwhelming himself. I need to continue, he decided, selecting a third crystal, this on. Inscribed with intertwined sun and moon patterns, suggesting it contained knowledge about harmonizing both energies. Pace yourself, Sakura cautioned. Your body needs time to integrate what you're learning. Even accelerated knowledge transfer has limits. I know, Naruto acknowledged. But eclipse won't give us the luxury of time. The more I can learn now, the better prepared I'll be when they return. As Sakura left to update the others, Naruto held the combined crystal in both hands, channeling solar chakra from his right and lunar from his left simultaneously. The disc responded more powerfully than either previous crystal, golden and silver light twining together as they flowed up his arms. This time, his consciousness shifted to a different scene, the temple at twilight, that Limmy. Null time when day and night balance perfectly. Before him stood both Hiroshi and Mizuki together, representatives of clans that were allied yet separate, cooperating yet distinct. The celestial harmony, they spoke in unison. As neither solar nor lunar, but a third state entirely, the perfect balance that transcends opposition. They demonstrated paired movements, solar and lunar techniques flowing into each other like dance partners, creating effects greater than either could achieve alone. The knowledge transferred directly into Naruto's mind, but this was more complex than either previous crystal, requiring integration of opposing principles into unified understanding. The sun pushes outward, the moon pulls inward, Hiroshi explained. When balanced, they create perfect circulation, energy flowing continuously rather than being expended or conserved. Like breath, Mizuki continued, inhaling and exhaling in perfect rhythm. Neither action complete without the other, yet each distinct in its nature and purpose. The scenes progressed to practical applications, techniques that harmonized both energies for effects impossible with either alone, healing methods that both energized and balanced. Defensive barriers that simultaneously reflected attacks and countered with solar force, sensory techniques that perceived both physical reality and emotional states. Most intriguing were forms designed specifically for interaction with natural energy, techniques that resembled Sage Mode in principle but operated through fundamentally different mechanisms, drawing on celestial forces rather than terrestrial ones. This memory transfer lasted longer than the previous two, the complexity of the combined knowledge requiring more time to process. When Naruto finally returned to awareness, he found the chamber bathed in pre-dawn light, the night having passed while his consciousness explored ancient wisdom. Sasuke sat across from him, Sharingan active, observing the flow of energies through Naruto's chakra network. Interesting patterns, he commented when he saw Naruto had returned. Your chakra is organizing itself differently with each crystal you absorb. It feels different, Naruto agreed, carefully returning the combined crystal to the chest. More integrated, like the solar and lunar energies are learning to coexist rather than simply alternating. Can you apply what you're learning? Sasuke asked practically. Or is it still theoretical at this point? In response, Naruto extended both hands, channeling solar chakra through his right and lunar through his left. Instead of forming separate manifestations, he guided the energies to orbit each other, creating a spiraling pattern of gold and silver that rotated between his palms. The celestial current, he explained, recalling the technique's name from the memory crystal. It's meant to establish balance before attempting more complex applications. Sasuke studied the pattern with his Sharingan. The chakra isn't just mixing, it's resonating, creating harmonics I've never seen before. It's the foundation for more advanced techniques, Naruto continued, maintaining the spiral while speaking, something that would have been impossible before absorbing the crystal's knowledge. Like this, he shifted the energies slightly, allowing the gold and silver streams to intermingle in specific patterns. The spiral compressed, forming a perfect sphere of white light shot through with traces of both component colors. Unlike his previous attempts at combining the energies, which had required intense concentration and drained him quickly, this formation felt natural, sustainable. Celestial harmony, Naruto named the technique, but properly formed this time. The drain on your chakra is significantly reduced, Sasuke observed. More efficient than your earlier attempts. Naruto nodded, dispersing the sphere with a controlled release rather than simply cutting off the energy flow. The crystals don't just provide techniques. They teach fundamental principles, how celestial chakra behaves, how to guide it rather than force it. Similar to how the Uchiha pass down fire techniques, Sasuke noted. Not just the hand signs but the feeling of controlling flame. Exactly. Naruto stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of immobility. There's so much more in these crystals, applications I never would have imagined. But it takes time to properly integrate the knowledge. Time we may not have, Sasuke reminded him, rising as well. The others have been monitoring the surrounding area. No sign of eclipse yet, but Kakashi believes they're regrouping rather than retreating entirely. They exited the pavilion into the temple courtyard, where morning light illuminated their companions engaged in various activities. Tenten worked with Hinata, modifying weapons with seals designed to channel or counter celestial chakra. Sakura studied scrolls from the underground library, making notes on medical applications. Kakashi and Amaya patrolled the perimeter, maintaining vigilance while discussing defense strategies. Any progress with the crystals? Kakashi asked, approaching as Naruto and Sasuke emerged. Significant. Naruto confirmed. I've absorbed 3 so far. 1 focused on solar techniques, 1 on lunar, and 1 on harmonizing both. There's more to learn, but I already understand these abilities better than before. Good, because we may have less time than anticipated. Kakashi's expression grew serious. Amaya sensed disturbances in the water sources surrounding the temple's subtle manipulations that suggest Eclipse scouts testing our perimeter. How many? Sasuke asked immediately. Impossible to determine precisely, Amaya replied, joining them. They're being cautious, staying beyond visual range. But the pattern suggests preparation for a coordinated approach rather than isolated observers. Naruto considered this information, newly acquired knowledge providing context for strategic decisions. We should continue as planned, he decided. I'll work with more crystals while everyone else prepares defenses and gathers what information they can from the temple. Agreed, Kakashi nodded. Focus on practical applications, techniques you can use if Eclipse attacks before we're ready to leave. What about the crystals themselves? Tenten asked, approaching with a specialized storage scroll. We should secure them for transport back to Konoha. I've been examining that, Sakura interjected. The chest they're stored in isn't just a container, it's part of a preservation system. The seals maintain the crystals' integrity over time. If we remove them without proper preparation, they might deteriorate. Can we take the entire chest? Sasuke suggested. Sakura shook her head. It's anchored to the temple's foundation, literally part of the structure. Removing it would require dismantling sections of the pavilion. Then we need to create a portable alternative, Tenten decided. Her expertise with sealing techniques making her the natural choice for such work. I might be able to design something based on the chest's preservation seals, but it will take time. Split the tasks, Kakashi instructed. Naruto continues with the crystals. Tenten works on a portable containment system with Sakura's assistance. Sasuke, Hinata, and I will maintain secure it. And explore the remaining temple sections. Amaya, monitor water sources for any sign of Eclipse's approach. With their roles defined, the team dispersed to their respective tasks. Naruto returned to the central pavilion, selecting another crystal from the chest, this one inscribed with complex patterns suggesting advanced solar techniques. As he channeled golden chakra into the disc, his conscio USNESS once again separated from his body, immersing in preserved memories from centuries past. This crystal contained more specialized knowledge, combat applications of solar chakra beyond the fundamental principles he'd already learned. Hiroshi demonstrated techniques for concentrating solar energy into weapons, creating constructs of solid light, even methods for temporarily enhancing physical attributes through controlled infusion of solar chakra into specific muscle groups. The warrior aspect of our bloodline must be balanced with wisdom, Hiroshi cautioned his advanced students. Power without purpose becomes mere destruction. Technique without restraint leads to hubris. The scenes progressed through increasingly complex applications, each building on fundamental principles while expanding the potential range of effects. Particularly interesting were techniques for extending sensory perception through solar chakra, creating an awareness of one's surroundings similar to what the Byakugan provided, though more limited in range and less detailed in resolution. When Naruto returned to awareness, Hinata sat nearby, having come to check on his condition during her patrol rotation. Your chakra network continues to adapt, she observed with her Byakugan. The secondary pathways are becoming more established, less ephemeral. It feels more natural each time, Naruto confirmed, ca. Refully returning the crystal to the chest. Less like using a technique and more like breathing. Something the body remembers how to do on its own. Similar to how the gentle fist becomes instinctive for Hyuga after years of training. Hinata noted, except you're compressing that timeline through direct knowledge transfer. It's still not the same as actual practice, Naruto acknowledged. The memories provide understanding, but my body needs to develop the corresponding muscle memory and chakra control. Perhaps we can help with that, Hinata suggested. While you absorb knowledge from the crystals, the rest of us can assist with practical application, creating opportunities to implement what you're learning in controlled conditions. Naruto smiled, appreciating both her insight and her growing confidence in offering such suggestions. The shy girl who could barely speak in his presence had matured into a thoughtful shinobi whose quiet strength complemented his more exuberant approach. That's a great idea, he agreed. Maybe after I work with a few more crystals, we could. His words cut off as a pulse of energy rippled through the temple complex, subtle but distinct, like a distant thunderclap felt rather than heard. Hinata's Byakugan activated instantly, scanning the surroundings. Something's happening at the northern gate, she reported tensely. The temple's defense seals are reacting to an external force. They rushed from the pavilion to find their companions already converging on the northern section of the complex. From atop the circular wall, Sasuke Monet oared the forest beyond with his Sharingan. Movement in the trees, he reported as Naruto and Hinata joined them. Coordinated approach from multiple vectors. They're being cautious, testing the parameter rather than launching a direct assault. How many? Kakashi asked, already forming contingency plans. At least 15 distinct chakra signatures, Sasuke replied. Varied abilities from what I can detect. They're keeping their distance, just within Sharingan range. Eclipse doesn't typically deploy teams that large, Amaya noted with concern. This isn't a standard acquisition unit, it's a full combat detachment. Kagami must have decided subtlety is no longer required, Tenten observed grimly, unsealing a scroll containing specialized weapons she'd prepared for this confrontation. Naruto assessed the situation, drawing on both his extensive combat experience and the new knowledge he'd acquired from the memory crystals. Eclipse clearly intended to overwhelm them with superior numbers rather than the surgical approach they'd attempted previously. They want the temple as much as they want me, he realized aloud. This place contains knowledge they've been seeking for decades. Which gives us leverage, Sasuke noted strategically. They won't risk destroying what they've come to acquire. Unless they believe they can extract what they need from you directly, Amaya countered, her expression grim. If Kagami thinks you've already absorbed enough of the codex, he might prioritize capturing you over preserving the temple. Kakashi considered their options. We need more information before deciding whether to defend or withdraw. Hinata, can you extend your Byakugan range to get a clearer picture of their deployment? Hinata nodded, forming a specialized hand seal to focus her visual Kekkei Genkei to its maximum extent. I'll try, but if they have sensor types monitoring for chakra signatures, this might reveal our awareness of their presence. A risk we need to take, Kakashi decided. Better to know what we're facing than remain in uncertainty. As Hinata extended her Byakugan to its limits, scanning the surrounding forest methodically, the others prepared for potential combat. Tenten distributed weapons modified with seals designed to counter Eclipse's known techniques. Sakura prepared medical supplies while mentally reviewing the combat applications of her chakra control. Sasuke and Kakashi coordinated potential defensive positions, identifying key points within the temple complex that could be fortified if necessary. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, assessing his own readiness. The crystal memories had provided unprecedented insight into his celestial abilities, but practical application remained limited by his physical body's need to adapt to these new chakra pathways. He could access techniques far beyond what he'd managed previously, but sustaining them in extended combat remained uncertain. Eclipse forces are establishing a perimeter around the entire temple complex, Hinata reported, veins around her eyes prominent with the strain of extended Byakugan use. Approximately 20 operatives total, divided into specialized units. I can identify sensor types, combat specialists, and what appear to be medical personnel or researchers. A full extraction team, Amaya translated grimly. They're preparing for a sustained operation, not just a quick strike. And Kagami? Naruto asked. Hinata shook her head. I don't see him among the forces I can observe. Either he's beyond my range or he's approaching from another angle entirely, Sasuke finished, his Sharingan suddenly focusing on the temple courtyard itself. Like last time, they turned to follow his gaze, scanning the reflective surfaces of the stone pool, polished monuments, and crystal embellishments that dotted the complex. Any of these could potentially serve as an entry point for Kagami's reflection technique. We need a decision, Kakashi stated firmly. Defend the temple or withdraw with what we've learned so far. If we leave, Eclipse takes the temple and everything in it, Sasuke pointed out, including the crystals Naruto hasn't had time to absorb. If we stay, we risk being overwhelmed by superior numbers in an extended siege, Sakura countered. Our mission was to gather information, not fight a pitched battle against Eclipse's main force. All eyes turned to Naruto, tacitly acknowledging that his stake in this decision outweighed others. The celestial bloodlines were his heritage, the knowledge contained in the temple directly relevant to his development. We stay, he decided after a moment's consideration. But not passively. We use the temple to our advantage, set the terms of engagement. This place was designed for wielders of celestial chakra. It should respond to my abilities in ways Eclipse can't match. A specific plan would be helpful, Sasuke noted dryly. Naruto nodded, recalling information from the crystal memoir, i.e. about the temple's design and purpose. The synchronization array I activated yesterday, it's not just defensive. According to the memories, it can be configured for various functions, including offensive applications. Can you control it precisely enough to target Eclipse forces without damaging the temple itself? Kakashi asked. I think so, Naruto replied, though uncertainty edged his voice. The crystal memories include techniques for manipulating the array, but I haven't had time to practice them directly. It's our best option, Amaya supported, her knowledge of Eclipse operations proving valuable once again. They'll expect us to either defend conventionally or attempt to escape. Turning the temple itself against them would be unexpected. Then that's our approach, Kakashi decided. Naruto works with the synchronization array while the rest of us maintain defensive positions and prepare for various contingencies. If the array proves ineffective or too difficult to control, we shift to a fighting withdrawal. As the team dispersed to implement this strategy, Naruto returned to the central pavilion where the pool at its center connected directly to the main synchronization array. According to the crystal memories, this served as the primary control point for the temple's integrated systems. Hinata accompanied him, her Byakugan providing continuous monitoring of ECL. Ipsa's movements while the others established defensive positions at key points throughout the complex. Amaya remained nearby as well, her knowledge of both lunar chakra and eclipse tactics potentially valuable for what Naruto attempted. The array activates through specific chakra patterns, Naruto explained, kneeling beside the pool. Not just solar or lunar individually, but precise combination. S channeled through these guidance points. He indicated carved symbols around the pool's rim, each representing different configurations of the temple's energy system. Like the Hyuga's 8 trigrams techniques, Hinata observed. Different energy patterns creating different effects within the same fundamental system. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, impressed by her quick understanding. The pool serves as both focus and mirror, reflecting intentions through the water medium. He extended his hands over the water's surface, not quite touching it, and began channeling both solar and lunar chakra simultaneously. The pool responded immediately, its surface glowing with intermingled gold and silver light that spread outward through channels in the pavilion floor. Eclipse is responding to the energy signature, Hinata reported, monitoring the surrounding forest with her Byakugan. Their sensor types have detected the activation. Combat units are moving into position. Good, Naruto said grimly. Let them come. He focused on the guidance symbols, directing the combined energies into a specific configuration the crystal memories had identified as revealing light, a defensive pattern D. Assigned to neutralize concealment techniques and expose hidden approaches. The temple complex illuminated with gold and silver light that pulsed outward in expanding waves. Where these waves passed through solid objects, they left no effect. But where they encountered chakra-based concealment, genjutsu, transformation techniques, chakra suppression, they disrupted the artificial patterns, forcing true forms to manifest. In the forest surrounding the temple, previously hidden eclipse operatives suddenly became visible, their camouflage techniques neutralized by the temple's revealing light. Some had advanced to within meters of the outer wall, preparing infiltration routes that now stood exposed. "It's working," Amaya observed with quiet amazement. "The temple's responding to your direction." Naruto nodded, maintaining his focus on the pool while shifting to a different configuration, one labeled, Boundary Assertion, in the crystal memories. This pattern directed energy specifically to the temple's perimeter, reinforcing its existing protective seals while establishing a tangible barrier against unauthorized entry. The outer wall gleamed with intensified power, a translucent dome of energy forming above the entire complex. Eclipse operatives who had been preparing to scale the wall recoiled as the barrier manifested, some receiving visible shocks when testing its resilience with weapons or jutsu. "They're reassessing," Hinata reported, tracking the eclipse force's movements, pulling back to defensive positions while their sensor types analyze the barrier. "They won't find conventional weaknesses," Amaya noted with satisfaction. Celestial barriers operate on different principles than standard chakra techniques. Naruto maintained the defensive configuration while considering next steps. According to the crystal memories, the temple's array could be shifted from defense to offense, though such applications required precise control and significant energy expenditure. "They're regrouping," Hinata continued her observations. "Sensor types are conferring with what appears to be their field commander, a tall woman with distinctive red markings around her eyes. Rin," Amaya identified immediately. "The eclipse operative we captured and interrogated. She must have been extracted from Konoha's custody somehow." This development concerned Naruto. If Eclipse could penetrate Konoha's security to retrieve a captured operative, their resources and reach exceeded previous estimates. It also suggested they might have inside information about the team's mission to the temple. Before he could pursue this troubling line of thought, Hinata tensed suddenly. "New development," she reported. "The water in the stream north of the temple, it's behaving unnaturally, flowing against gravity toward the complex." Amaya moved immediately to a window overlooking the northern approach. "Water manipulation," she confirmed grimly. "But not like mine. This is corrupted somehow. Unnatural." The stream water had indeed begun behaving strangely, rising in tendrils that probed the temple's barrier, seeking weaknesses. Where these watery appendages touched the energy field, they sizzled and steamed but persisted, applying constant pressure to specific points. "Someone's trying to use lunar aspected water techniques to counter your barrier," Amaya explained, her expression troubled. "But the energy signature feels wrong, forced rather than flowing." One of Eclipse's experiments, Naruto surmised, recalling what Amaya had told them about forced awakening of celestial abilities. Quote, "Someone with water affinity being pushed to manifest lunar aspects." The water probes continued their assault on the barrier, gradually identifying points where different energy patterns overlapped, potential vulnerabilities in the defensive system. Naruto adjusted his control of the array, reinforcing these weak points, but doing so required dividing his attention between multiple aspects of the temple's energy flow. "They're testing systematically," Sasuke observed, having joined them in the pavilion after observing the water manipulation from his position. "Identifying response patterns, reaction times, energy distribution. Standard siege tactics against an unknown defense. Can you maintain this barrier indefinitely?" Kakashi asked, also arriving to assess the situation. Naruto shook his head, sweat beading on his forehead from the sustained effort of controlling the temple array. "A few hours at most. It's not just chakra expenditure, it's the mental focus required to maintain the specific configurations. Then we need to resolve this situation before you reach exhaustion," Kakashi decided. "Options. Counter-offensive," Sasuke suggested immediately. "Use the temple's systems to disrupt their organization before they can fully analyze our defenses." "Risky," Sakura cautioned, joining them with Tenten. "If Naruto shifts from defense to offense, there might be a momentary vulnerability they could exploit." "Not necessarily," Naruto interjected, recalling another configuration from the crystal memories. "There's a pattern called reflective assertion, it turns attacks CK on their originators while maintaining the barrier. Perfect for dealing with their water manipulation, Amaya noted with approval. Using their own techniques against them, Naruto adjusted his approach, carefully shifting the energy flow while maintaining the overall integrity of the barrier. The pool's surface rippled, patterns changing to reflect this new configuration. Throughout the temple complex, the gold-and-silver light altered subtly, taking on a more reflective quality while retaining its protective function. When the water tendrils next pressed against the barrier, instead of simply being repelled, they rebounded with amplified force, reversing direction to surge back toward their source. In the forest beyond, shouts of surprise and pain indicated the technique had found its targets. Direct hit, Hinata confirmed, tracking the effects with her Byakugan. 3 Eclipse operatives controlling the water technique have been incapacitated by their own reflected power. This successful countermeasure prompted a change in Eclipse's approach. The water manipulation ceased, replaced by more conventional attacks, explosive tags attached to kunai, fire techniques, even a rated lightning jutsu from a specialist positioned on a distant ridge. Each attack rebounded from the reflective barrier, returning to its source with varying effects. The explosive tags detonated prematurely. The fire techniques dissipated harmlessly into the air, and the lightning jutsu grounded itself through nearby trees rather than striking its caster directly. They're testing the reflection properties, Kakashi observed, identifying which attacks return directly and which disperse. Standard Eclipse procedure, Amaya confirmed. Methodical assessment before committing to a primary strategy. For nearly an hour, this pattern continued, Eclipse forces probing the barrier with various techniques while Naruto maintained the reflective configuration, making minor adjustments as needed to address specific challenges. Though taxing, the crystal memories provided sufficient guidance to sustain the defense more efficiently than would otherwise have been possible. They're pulling back, Hinata eventually reported, scanning the surrounding forest, withdrawing to positions approximately half a kilometer from the temple in all directions. Regrouping or retreating? Sasuke asked skeptically. Neither, came a familiar voice from behind them. They turned to find Kagami standing calmly in the pavilion's doorway, having somehow bypassed both the temple's barrier and their internal defenses. Unlike his previous appearance, he came alone, without Eclipse operatives or even his reflection duplicates. Merely acknowledging the need for a different approach, the Eclipse leader continued. His mirrored eyes reflecting the gold and silver light that filled the chamber. One that recognizes mutual interests rather than artificial opposition. Naruto maintained his position at the pool, hands still directing energy into the temple array, though his attention was now divided between this task and the unexpected visitor. The others formed a protective semicircle, weapons and jutsu at ready. How did you get in? Kakashi demanded, Sharingan exposed and focused on Kagami. The temple recognizes me, Kagami replied simply. Not as completely as it does our young friend here, but sufficiently to permit conditional entry. He gestured to his eyes. The Tsukuyomi bloodline flows in my veins, albeit in fragmented form. You have lunar chakra, Naruto realized, recalling Amaya's description of Kagami's reflection abilities. That's how your technique works, manipulating reflections through a corrupted form of the moon bloodline. Corrupted is a harsh characterization, Kagami countered mildly. Specialized would be more accurate. Evolution always involves adaptation, sometimes at the cost of certain, unnecessary aspects. What do you want? Sasuke interrupted impatiently, clearly uninterested in philosophical discussion with an enemy. To propose an arrangement, Kagami replied, his gaze returning to Naruto. One that serves both our interests while avoiding needless conflict. We're not interested in any arrangement with Eclipse, Naruto stated firmly, maintaining the temple's defenses despite the strain. Before reflexively rejecting what you haven't heard, consider this, Kagami continued smoothly. You seek understanding of your newly awakened abilities. I possess generations of research into the celestial bloodlines, including applications and potential. These limited crystal memories cannot provide. He gestured to the chest containing the remaining memory crystals. Those represent the past, traditions and techniques from an era long vanished. What I offer is the future, the full realization of what these bloodlines can become when freed from archaic limitations. You mean when perverted through experimentation on unwilling subjects, Amaya countered sharply. Kagami acknowledged her with a slight nod. Regrettable methods necessitated by obstruction and ignorance. But methods that have yielded results no amount of meditation or crystal memories could achieve. What exactly are you proposing? Kakashi asked, his tone neutral but vigilant. An exchange, Kagami replied. Access to the temple and its resources in return for sharing Eclipse's research. Collaborative rather than competitive development of the celestial bloodline's potential. He turned his mirrored gaze directly to Naruto. You've already experienced how the crystal memories accelerate your understanding. Imagine supplementing that ancient knowledge with modern applications, scientific insights, practical innovations developed through decades of dedicated research. The offer was tempting in its logic if not its source. Naruto had indeed found the crystal memories invaluable but incomplete, focused on fundamentals rather than full applications, on tradition rather than innovation. Eclipse's research, however unethically obtained, might fill crucial gaps in his understanding. And the price? Naruto asked, knowing such offers always carried hidden costs. Cooperation, Kagami stated simply. Periodic sharing of your experiences as you develop these abilities. Participation in controlled studies to better understand how complete bloodlines function compared to fragmented ones. Nothing invasive, nothing that compromises your autonomy or allegiances. You expect us to believe Eclipse would respect such boundaries? Sasuke scoffed. An organization that kidnaps and experiments on people with even traces of these bloodlines. Those methods were necessary when working with incomplete, resistant subjects, Kagami countered smoothly. With a willing participant possessing complete bloodlines, entirely different approaches become viable. Throughout this exchange, Naruto maintained the temple's defensive array while carefully evaluating Kagami's proposal. The Eclipse leader presented a reasonable facade, but Naruto sensed the calculation beneath, the patient predator willing to appear accommodating until the right moment to strike. Even if we believed your intentions, Naruto replied finally, there's a fundamental difference in how we view these abilities. You see them as powers to be controlled, unified under your direction for some concept of balance you've defined. I see them as responsibilities, connected to people and choices rather than abstract purposes. A philosophical distinction that needn't prevent practical cooperation, Kagami insisted. Whatever meaning you attach to these gifts, their technical development follows certain principles. Those principles are what Eclipse has mapped over decades of research. At the cost of how many lives? Amaya challenged. How many unwilling subjects sacrificed for your mapping? A shadow of irritation crossed Kagami's face before his composed expression returned. Progress requires sacrifice. History judges outcomes, not methods. Then history will judge Eclipse harshly, Naruto stated, his resolve hardening. We're not interested in your offer, Kagami. Whatever knowledge we need, we'll discover through our own efforts, not through partnership with those who treat people as experimental material. Kagami studied him for a long moment, his mirrored eyes unreadable. I expected this response, he admitted finally, hoped for better, but anticipated rejection. Youth so often confuses moral rigidity with ethical clarity. If you expected rejection, why make the offer at all? Sasuke asked suspiciously. Professional courtesy, Kagami replied with a slight smile. And to satisfy certain administrative requirements before proceeding to alternative approaches. The subtle shift in his tone alerted everyone to the threat beneath his words. Kakashi and Sasuke moved closer to Naruto, while Sakura and Tenten positioned themselves to defend against potential attacks. Whatever you're planning, Kakashi warned, remember that this temple responds to Naruto, not to your fractured abilities. Indeed, Kagami acknowledged, a significant advantage in direct confrontation. But not all battles are won through frontal assault. He stepped back toward the pavilion entrance, making no threatening moves. Consider my offer. It remains open despite your initial rejection. When you discover the limitations of what these crystals can teach you, the gaps in their knowledge, the questions they can't answer, Eclipse will welcome more productive discussion. We'll pass, Naruto replied firmly. Kagami shrugged elegantly. Time alters many perspectives, particularly when faced with challenges beyond one's current capabilities. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and do give my regards to Konoha's elders. Some of them remember me from earlier days. With that cryptic statement, he stepped through the doorway and simply vanished, not in a puff of smoke or flicker of movement, but through some application of his reflection technique that left no trace for even Hinata's Byakugan to track. Was that really him? Tenten asked once they'd verified he was truly gone. Or another reflection. The real Kagami, I believe, Kakashi replied thoughtfully. He wanted us to know he could bypass our defenses personally, not just through proxies. And deliver his message directly, Sasuke added. A psychological tactic as much as a practical one. Naruto finally released the temple's defensive array, exhaustion washing over him as he broke the sustained chakra connection. Sakura moved to his side immediately, monitoring his condition with medical attention. Your chakra networks are strained but intact, she reported after a brief examination. Both standard A&D celestial pathways show signs of fatigue but no damage. I'm fine, Naruto assured her, though the weariness in his voice belied the claim. Just need a short rest before continuing with the crystals. Eclipse forces are withdrawing, Hinata reported, still monitoring the surrounding area. Moving back in coordinated groups, maintaining formation rather than dispersing. A tactical retreat, not an abandonment. Kakashi interpreted. They'll return, possibly with a different approach based on what they learned today. What did Kagami mean about Konoha's elders remembering him? Tenten asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Nothing good, Kakashi replied grimly. It suggests he has history with the village beyond what we know, possibly explaining how Eclipse extracted their operative from Konoha's custody. This troubling implication hung in the air as they considered their next steps. The confrontation with Eclipse had demonstrated both the value of the temple's defenses and the limits of their sustainability. Naruto couldn't maintain the protective array indefinitely, and Kagami had proven capable of bypassing it regardless. We need to accelerate our timetable, Sasuke decided practically. Extract what knowledge we can from the remaining crystals, then return to Konoha with our findings before Eclipse launches their next approach. Agreed, Kakashi nodded. Tenten, what's the status of your portable containment system for the crystals? Nearly complete, she replied. I've adapted preservation seals based on the chest's design. Not as powerful or durable as the original, but sufficient for transport and temporary storage. Good. Focus on completing that while Naruto works with the remaining critical crystals. Kakashi turned to the others. Maintain defensive readiness while gathering any additional information from the temple that might prove valuable. We'll depart at dawn tomorrow, regardless of how much we've managed to extract by then. As he team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Naruto remained by the pool, contemplating the chest of memory crystals with mixed emotions. The knowledge they contained had already transformed his understanding of the celestial bloodlines. Yet much remained unexplored. Leaving before absorbing all they offered felt like abandoning a precious inheritance half-claimed. You're worried about leaving knowledge behind, Amaya observed, staying with him while the others prepared for their accelerated departure. Not just knowledge, Naruto admitted. Connection. These crystals contain more than techniques. They hold the experiences, wisdom, even personalities of people who mastered these abilities generations ago. People who might be my ancestors. Amaya nodded in understanding, the past speaking to the present. But remember, you carry what you've learned within you now. The crystals are tools for transmission, not the knowledge itself. Still, knowing Eclipse might claim them after we leave. He trailed off, frustrated by the choice circumstances forced upon them. Focus on what matters most, Amaya advised. The crystals containing fundamental principles and key applications. The rest, specialized techniques, historical contexts, philosophical perspectives, those can wait for another time. Naruto nodded, appreciating her practical approach. After resting briefly to recover from maintaining the temple's defenses, he selected another crystal from the chest, this one inscribed with patterns suggesting advanced applications of combined solar and lunar chakra. As he channeled energy into the disk, his consciousness once again separated from his physical form, immersing in the preserved memories of ancient practitioners. This time, the knowledge focused on techniques requiring perfect court balance between opposing energies, applications impossible with either bloodline alone. Most fascinating were methods for manipulating space and perception, creating domains where conventional physics yielded to celestial influence. establishing fields where time itself seemed to flow differently for those within and without. These weren't genjutsu in the traditional sense, but actual modifications to reality within limited parameters. When Naruto returned to awareness, night had fallen outside the pavilion's open dome. Stars glittered overhead, their light complementing the silver-gold illumination of the pool beneath. Sasuke sat nearby, having taken responsibility for monitoring Naruto's condition while he worked with the crystals. "Learn anything useful?" Sasuke asked practically. "Incredible techniques," Naruto replied, carefully returning the crystal to the chest. "Applications I never would have imagined. But many require years of practice to master, even with the direct knowledge transfer. Focus on what you can use now," Sasuke advised, echoing Amaya's earlier suggestion. "Immediate applications rather than long-term potential." Naruto nodded, selecting one final crystal. For the night, a disc inscribed with patterns suggesting defensive applications of celestial chakra. This seemed most immediately relevant given their situation and the likelihood of further confrontat. Ion with Eclipse during their journey home. As he absorbed this crystal's knowledge, he gained understanding of techniques specifically designed for protection, not just barriers like those he'd already manifested, but methods for concealment, misdirection, and counter-response that operated on principles fundamentally different from standard ninja arts. Particularly valuable were techniques for tending protective effects to others, creating fields that could shield companions from harm or enhance their natural abilities temporarily. These required precise chakra control but demanded less total energy than maintaining individual protections for each person. When Naruto completed this final session for the night, he found most of his companions gathered in the pavilion, having established a secure perimeter around the central structure. Their expressions suggested new developments had occurred during his immersion in the crystal memories. "What happened?" he asked immediately, noting their concern. "Eclipse forces have completely withdrawn from the immediate area," Kakashi reported. "No signs of surveillance or preparation for further engagement." "That's good, isn't it?" Naruto asked, sensing the unspoken concern beneath this apparently positive news. "Too convenient," Sasuke replied darkly. "They apply pressure, make their offer, then withdraw entirely when rejected. It suggests they've shifted to an alternative approach," Sasuke continued, his expression grim. "One that doesn't require maintaining forces here at the temple." "Like what?" Naruto asked, fully alert despite his fatigue. "We intercepted communications between their units before they departed," Kakashi explained, holding up a small scroll bearing Eclipse's emblem. "Incomplete, but concerning. They mentioned contingency targets and leverage points in Konoha." A cold weight settled in Naruto's stomach. "They're planning to attack the village." "Not directly," Hinata clarified, having helped decode the intercepted messages. "The phrasing suggests targeted extraction of specific individuals, similar to how they attempted to abduct the Hyuga elder. But on a larger scale," Sasuke added. "Multiple targets, coordinated timing." The implications were immediate and disturbing. If Eclipse couldn't obtain Naruto or the temple's knowledge directly, they might target those connected to him, friends, mentors. Anyone whose safety might be used as leverage to force his cooperation. "We need to warn Konoha," Naruto stated, already rising despite his exhaustion. "I've dispatched a messenger hawk with encoded warning," Kakashi assured him. "But given our distance from the village, we should assume any Eclipse operation would be underway before our message arrives. Then we need to return immediately." Naruto insisted. "Forget dawn. We should leave now. Traveling through unfamiliar forest at night with Eclipse potentially monitoring our movements would be reckless," Sasuke countered pragmatically. "We'd be vulnerable to ambush or misdirection. Besides," Tenten added, "I need a few more hours to complete the portable containment for the crystals. Rushing the seal work could compromise the entire system." Naruto paced restlessly, torn between the urgent need to protect Konoha and the practical limitations they faced. The crystal memories had expanded his understanding dramatically. But even with this new knowledge, he couldn't be in two places at once or travel instantaneously between the temple and the village. "What about a partial team?" he suggested. "Some of us return immediately while others remain to secure the crystals and follow at dawn. Dividing our strength would leave both groups vulnerable," Kakashi cautioned. Especially with you as Eclipse's primary target. If you return ahead of the others, you'd be exactly what they're hoping to isolate. And if I stay while others warn the village, we risk losing the very people we're trying to protect. Naruto countered in frustration. The group fell silent, each weighing impossible options against uncertain threats. Finally, Amaya spoke, her voice thoughtful. There might be another approach, she suggested. One that uses Eclipse's own strategy against them. All eyes turned to her expectantly. Eclipse relies heavily on information networks, she explained. Their operatives infiltrate villages, establish monitoring systems, recruit or coerce local assets. That's how they track bloodline potentials and plan extractions. We know this, Sasuke said impatiently. How does it help us? Information networks can be manipulated, Amaya continued, undeterred. Fed false data that appears reliable. If we can make Eclipse believe certain high-value targets are no longer in Konoha, they might delay their operation, Sakura finished, understanding dawning. Buying time for our warning to reach the village. Exactly, Amaya nodded. And we have the perfect means to seed such misinformation. She turned to Naruto. The temple's array can project energy signatures detectable by specialized sensors. If configured properly, it could mimic the presence of multiple Konoha shinobi here at the temple, making Eclipse believe key targets have already been moved. Would Eclipse actually detect such projections? Kakashi asked skeptically. Their sensor types are specifical L. Y trained to identify and track unique chakra signatures, Amaya confirmed. It's how they monitor potential bloodline carriers. If they detect what appear to be signatures of Konoha leadership or Naruto's close associates here at the temple, they'd likely postpone any extraction operation pending verification. It's worth attempting, Hinata supported. And it doesn't prevent us from also sending direct warnings. Naruto considered the proposal. The crystal memories had indeed included techniques for projecting chakra signatures through the temple's array, primarily used for long-distance communication between celestial bloodline wielders, but potentially adaptable for this deception. I can try, he decided. The crystal memories showed me how the temple can be used to extend chakra presence. It's meant for communication, but with some modification. What do you need? Kakashi asked, clearly willing to explore any option that might protect the village. Personal items, Naruto replied, recalling the technique's requirements. Something directly connected to the individuals whose signatures we want to project. Hair, cloth with lingering chakra residue, even weapons they've used extensively. The team immediately began cataloging what they had available, a surprising amount, as it turned out. Sakura carried a small pouch of emergency medical samples from key village personnel, including hair and blood specimens preserved for identification or treatment purposes. Kakashi possessed items from fellow Jonin accumulated during years of shared missions. Even Hinata had ceremony, Al-Hyuga clan tokens imbued with family members' chakra. This might work, Naruto said with growing hope, examining the collected items. The temple's array can amplify these residual signatures, projecting them outward as if the individuals were actually present. Working quickly despite his fatigue, Naruto returned to the central pool where the temple's primary controls were located. With guidance from the crystal memories, he configured the synchronization array for communication rather than defense, a subtle but critical adjustment that changed how energy flowed through the temple's elaborate network. The collected personal items were arranged around the pool's perimeter, each positioned on a specific guidance symbol that would shape how its signature manifested. Naruto then channeled combined solar and lunar chakra into the pool, careful to maintain the precise balance required for this delicate application. Gold-and-silver light spread through the temple complex once more, but with a different quality than the defensive barrier, more diffuse, more subtle, designed to extend outward rather than establish boundaries. As the energy connected with each personal item, it amplified the residual chakra signatures, projecting them beyond the temple grounds in a carefully orchestrated pattern. It's working, Hinata confirmed, her Byakugan tracking the energy flow. The signatures are extending well beyond our physical location, creating the impression of multiple Konoha shinobi throughout the surrounding forest. How far will it reach? Sasuke asked, studying the effect with his Sharingan. Several kilometers at least, Naruto replied, maintaining the technique while speaking, another benefit of the crystal memory's embodied knowledge. Enough that any eclipse sensors monitoring the region should detect it clearly. And how long can you sustain it? Kakashi inquired practically. With the temple amplifying the effect, several hours, Naruto estimated. The array does most of the work once properly configured. I just need to provide the initial chakra and periodic refreshment. Perfect, Kakashi nodded approvingly. That gives us time to complete preparations for Epiter while hopefully delaying any eclipse operation against Konoha. With the chakra projection established, the team returned to their preparations with renewed urgency. Tenten completed the portable containment system, a specialized scroll incorporating preservation seals modeled after the chest's ancient designs. Though not as powerful as the original, it would maintain the crystal's integrity during transport back to Konoha. Sakura and Hinata gathered medical and historical scrolls from the temple's underground library, focusing on texts relating to the celestial bloodlines and their applications. Sasuke and Kakashi finalized their route planning, identifying alternate paths and potential defensive positions should they encounter eclipse forces during their return journey. Throughout the night, Naruto maintained the chakra projection while periodically working with additional memory crystals, prioritizing those containing immediately applicable techniques or crucial historical context. Though unable to absorb all the knowledge the temple contained, he focused on foundational principles that would guide his continued development. As dawn approached, a sense of grim determination settled over the group. The projected chakra signatures had achieved their purpose. Eclipse observers had been detected at the outer range of Hinata's Byakugan, clearly monitoring the false precinct. Without attempting to approach the temple directly. Time to move, Kakashi announced as first light appeared on the horizon. Tenten, are the crystals secured? She nodded, patting a specialized scroll case at her hip. 23 memory crystals preserved in stasis seals. Not all the temple contained, but the most important ones according to Naruto's assessment. The rest remain in the chest, Naruto confirmed, regretfully eyeing the pavilion where additional crystals remained, protected by the temple's original preservation system. Which eclipse will eventually breach, Sasuke noted grimly. But not easily, Amaya countered. Without someone possessing both bloodlines, accessing the remaining crystals will require significant time and resources. We've taken the most valuable knowledge. With final preparations complete, the team gathered at the eastern gate where they had first entered. Naruto stood before the ancient archway, hands pressed against the keystone that had initially responded to his solar chakra. I need to properly deactivate the array, he explained to the others. Otherwise, the projected signatures will fade chaotically, potentially alerting Eclipse to our departure. Channeling carefully controlled celestial chakra into the keystone, Naruto initiated a gradual power-down sequence, not abruptly cutting the temple's energy flow but directing it into dormancy. A state that would appear natural to observing sensors rather than an obvious deactivation. As the golden light in the seal formulas faded to a subtle glow, Naruto felt a strange reluctance to leave this place that had connected him so deeply to his heritage. The temple had provided not just knowledge but context, a sense of belonging to something ancient and meaningful that transcended his identity as Konoha's Jinchuriki. We'll return, Hinata said softly beside him, somehow understanding his unspoken thoughts. When circumstances allow, when you've mastered what you've learned. The temple has waited centuries. It will wait a little longer. Naruto nodded gratefully, appreciating her perception and quiet support. With a final respectful bow to the ancient site, he turned away from the archway, joining his companions as they slipped into the surrounding forest just as the sun crested the eastern horizon. Their journey back to Konoha would be more direct than their outward path, prioritizing speed over stealth now that Eclipse was aware of their mission. They traveled in tight formation, with Hinata's Byakugan and Sasuke's Sharingan providing constant perimeter awareness. While Naruto remained at the center, both the most valuable target and the group's strongest asset should conflict arise. The first day passed without incident, though Hinata occasionally detected NT chakra signatures tracking parallel to their route. Eclipse observers, Amaya confirmed, monitoring rather than engaging, suggesting their deception had indeed caused the organization to reassess its plans. As they made camp that evening in a defensible ravine, Naruto found opportunity to practice some of the techniques he'd absorbed from the crystal memories. Away from the temple's amplifying influence, These abilities required more precise control and greater chakra expenditure, but the fundamental principles remained applicable. Your control is improving rapidly, Sakura observed, monitoring his chakra network as he practiced transitioning between solar and lunar manifestations. The pathways are becoming more established with each application. It feels more natural now, Naruto confirmed. Creating a small sphere of celestial harmony, the perfect balance of golden and silver energies, and maintaining it with minimal concentration. Less like using a technique and more like expressing something that was always there. Quote, integration rather than acquisition, Hinata suggested, her Byakugan tracking the energy flow through his expanded chakra network. As if your body is remembering something rather than learning something new. This insightful observation aligned with what Naruto had experienced through the crystal memories, the sense that these abilities were not foreign additions but dormant aspects of himself finally awakening. The distinction proved important for his continued development, shifting his approach from forced manipulation to natural expression. That night, as the others slept in rotation, Naruto took middle watch, seated on a high rock overlooking their camp. The half-moon overhead bathed the landscape in silver light that resonated with his lunar chakra, making it particularly responsive to his intentions. Experimentally, he extended his senses through this lunar affinity, creating what the crystal memories had called moonlight perception, state of awareness that detected movement and emotion rather than physical details, complementing rather than replacing normal vision. Through this enhanced perception, he detected a presence approaching their camp, a single figure moving with deliberate care, evidently attempting to remain undetected. The lunar enhanced awareness revealed not just location but intent, not immediate hostility but wary caution. As if assessing rather than attacking, Naruto signaled Sasuke, who had taken position on the opposite side of the camp, alerting him to the approach without verbal communication. A slight nod confirmed Sasuke had already detected the presence with his Sharingan. Rather than waking the others immediately, they waited, tracking the unknown observer's methodical circuit around their perimeter. The figure made no attempt to breach their defensive position, instead maintaining distance while seemingly gathering information. After completing a full reconnaissance circuit, the figure retreated several hundred meters before stopping in a small clearing illuminated by moonlight. There, it performed what appeared to be a communication technique, hands forming seals that created a brief Florida ray of chakra visible to both Naruto's lunar perception and Sasuke's Sharingan. Only then did Sasuke approach Naruto's position, moving silently to avoid alerting their observer. Eclipse Scout, he whispered, his assessment matching Naruto's own conclusion. Reporting our position rather than engaging directly. Should we intercept? Naruto asked, ready to move if necessary. Sasuke considered briefly before shaking his head. Let them report. We've maintained our projected timeline and direction. Better they believe they're successfully tracking us than alert them that we've detected their surveillance. The strategic reasoning made sense. If Eclipse believed their observation remained undetected, they might continue this cautious approach rather than attempting more aggressive interception. This would allow the team to maintain their pace toward Konoha while preserving the advantage of awareness. The remainder of the night passed without further incident, and they resumed their journey at first light, maintaining the brisk pace established the previous day. As they traveled, Naruto periodically practiced techniques from the crystal memories, focusing on those requiring minimal chakra expenditure while providing practical benefits, enhanced perception, efficient movement, subtle communication methods that didn't require hand signs or verbal exchange. By midday, they had entered more familiar territory, forests regularly patrolled by Konoha scouts, where Eclipse operatives would find surveillance more challenging. Hinata's Byakugan detected no followers within its considerable range, suggesting their observers had either fallen behind or withdrawn to avoid potential detection by Leaf Shinobi. We should reach the village by nightfall if we maintain this pace, Kakashi noted during a brief rest. Assuming no interference. Almost too easy, Sasuke commented suspiciously. Eclipse has significant resources and motivation. Their limited response suggests either strategic patience or they've redirected their focus elsewhere, Amaya finished grimly, voicing the concern they all shared. Possibly toward Konoha itself. This sobering possibility added urgency to their already purposeful travel. Despite fatigue from sustained exertion, they increased their pace through the afternoon, pushing toward home with growing apprehension about what they might find upon arrival. As twilight descended, the familiar silhouette of Konoha's walls appeared on the horizon, seemingly undamaged, with normal patrol patterns visible along the ramparts. This initial observation provided some relief, though all recognized that Eclipse's subtle approach might leave no obvious external signs of infiltration or extraction operations. They approached the main gate cautiously, alert for any indication of unusual activity. The standard guards greeted them with normal protocols, apparently unaware of any security concerns beyond routine vigilance. "Lady Tsunade is expecting you," one guard informed them after verifying their identities. "You're to report directly to her office upon arrival." This instruction, while not unusual for returning mission teams, carried additional significance given their concerns about Eclipse activity. The team proceeded immediately to the Hokage Tower, moving swiftly through evening streets that showed no signs of disturbance or heightened security. Tsunade waited in her office, accompanied by Shikamaru and, surprisingly, Yukina, the Anbu operative who had initially informed them about Eclipse. The Hokage's expression revealed nothing as they entered, maintaining professional composure until the door closed securely behind them. "Report," she commanded simply, her gaze fixing on Kakashi as team leader. He provided a concise summary of their mission, the temple's discovery, the memory crystals, Naruto's accelerated learning, the confrontations with Eclipse, and their concerns about potential operations against Konoha. "Your warning arrived yesterday," Tsunade confirmed when he finished. "We immediately implemented counterintelligence protocols and increased security around likely targets." "Has there been any Eclipse activity within the village?" Sasuke asked directly. "Attempted rather than successful," Shikamaru replied, his typically lazy demeanor sharpened by the situation's seriousness. 3 infiltration efforts identified and neutralized within the past 36 hours. All targeting individuals with potential connections to celestial bloodlines or knowledge thereof. "The Hyuga compound?" Hinata asked anxiously. "Secure," Tsunade assured her. "Your father implemented additional protections after the first attempt on your elder." "No breaches detected." "And the prisoners?" Naruto questioned, recalling the Eclipse operatives they had captured during their initial encounter with Amaya. The ones who were somehow extracted from Konoha custody. A shadow crossed Tsunade's face. "That situation remains concerning. Our investigation indicates they were removed by someone with intimate knowledge of Anbu protocols and village security systems. An inside facilitator." Kagami mentioned connections to Konoha's elders, Naruto recalled. "Said some would remember him from earlier days." "Yes," Yukina spoke for the first time, her dark eyes unreadable. "That particular claim has proven disturbingly credible. Archives confirm an operative codenamed Mirror was associated with certain classified operations approximately 25 years ago, during the Third Hokage's administration." "What kind of operations?" Sakura asked, clearly understanding the implications. "The kind that don't appear in official records," Yukina replied evenly. "Root division activities, primarily." The mention of Root D. Anzo Shimura's now disbanded covert operations unit that had operated outside normal village oversight sent a chill through the room. If Kagami had connections to that organization, his knowledge of Konoha's secrets and security vulnerabilities could be extensive. "This complicates our defensive posture significantly," Tsunade acknowledged grimly. "While Danzo is gone, remnants of his network may remain active. Potentially compromised by Eclipse influence. Or willingly cooperating," Sasuke suggested darkly. "Root's methodologies weren't so different from Eclipse's. Ends justifying means, power is ultimate arbiter." This disturbing possibility hung in the air as Tsunade turned her attention to the mission's primary objective. "The memory crystals, you were able to secure them." Tenten stepped forward, presenting the specialized scroll case. 23 crystals preserved in stasis seals, Lady Hokage. The most significant according to Naruto's assessment, though others remained at the temple. "And their contents?" Tsunade directed this question to Naruto himself. "Incredible," he replied honestly. "Techniques, history, philosophical approaches to the celestial bloodlines, knowledge that would take years to discover through conventional training. I've absorbed information from about half of what we recovered, focusing on fundamental principles and immediately applicable techniques." "Show me," Tsunade requested, her medical researcher's curiosity evident beneath her official demeanor. Naruto nodded, extending his hand's palm upward. Golden light manifested in his right hand, silver in his left, both appearing more refined, more controlled than during previous demonstrations. He then brought his hands together, the opposing energies not clashing but harmonizing, forming a perfect sphere of white light shot through with traces of both component colors. Celestial harmony, he named the technique. The balanced state that allows access to applications beyond what either energy can achieve alone. The drain on your chakra seems minimal, Tsunade observed with professional assessment. Much more efficient than your earlier attempts. The crystal memories provided insights into chakra flow management. Naruto explained, maintaining the sphere while speaking, a demonstration of his improved control. Directing these energies with intention rather than force, allowing them to follow natural pathways instead of forcing them through standard channels. And practical applications, Shikamaru inquired, clearly thinking strategically. In response, Naruto transformed his sphere into a thin disk of the same harmonized energy, then expanded it outward to encompass himself and his teammates in a translucent dome. Celestial barrier, he explained. Defensive technique that adapts to specific threats, reflecting projectiles, absorbing energy attacks, neutralizing genjutsu attempts. He released the technique, allowing the barrier to dissipate gradually rather than simply cutting the energy flow. That's just one application. The crystals revealed dozens more, healing methods, sensory extensions, even techniques for environmental manipulation. And the 9 tails? Tsunade asked the critical question directly. How do these abilities interact with your status as Jinchuriki? Separately, for now, Naruto replied honestly. The celestial chakra flows through distinct pathways from both my standard chakra and the 9 tails. But there are resonances. Moments when they seem aware of each other, like different instruments that could potentially play the same melody. That aligns with historical records, Yukina noted. The few references to Jinchuriki with celestial bloodline traits suggest complementary rather than conflicting energies, though full harmonization was never documented. Because no one ever possessed both bloodlines in complete form while also containing a tailed beast, Amaya added, speaking from her knowledge of Eclipse's research. Naruto represents an unprecedented combination. The implications of this uniqueness settled heavily over the room. Naruto's development had always followed unconventional paths, from his unorthodox learning style to his unprecedented mastery of shadow clones. Now, with the addition of celestial bloodlines to his already complex chakra situation, he represented something genuinely unique in the ninja world's history. For now, we focus on practical considerations, Tsunade decided, returning to her pragmatic leadership. The crystals will be secured in a specialized containment facility Here Naruto can continue studying them under controlled conditions. Eclipse's interest in Konoha requires immediate counter-intelligence operations to identify and neutralize potential infiltrators, particularly given these concerning connections to former root activities. She turned to Naruto specifically. Your training with these new abilities takes priority, but must be balanced with security considerations. No solo practice sessions, no demonstrations outside secure environments, no discussions with anyone not directly involved in this operation. Understood, Naruto agreed, recognizing the wisdom in these precautions despite his natural inclination toward openness. What about me? Amaya asked quietly. Her status as an outsider with valuable knowledge but no formal affiliation created an administrative challenge. You've proven your value and commitment, Tsunade acknowledged. If you wish to remain in Konoha, we can arrange temporary residency while you continue assisting with understanding these bloodlines and Eclipse's operations. Thank you, Amaya replied with evident relief. I have nowhere else to go, and my abilities are still developing. Being near others with similar experiences, she glanced at Naruto, provides both practical benefits and personal comfort. With immediate concerns addressed, Tsunade dismissed most of the team to rest and recover, retaining only Kakashi, Shikamaru, and Yukina for further strategic planning. As Naruto and his companions left the Hokage Tower, the weight of recent events and revelations settled around them like an invisible cloak. What happens now? Hinata asked as they stood in the quiet evening street, the village continuing its normal activities around them, unaware of the shadow eclipse cast over their security. "We prepare," Naruto replied simply. "I master these abilities as quickly as possible. We identify eclipse's connections within Konoha. We develop countermeasures against their techniques. And then," Sasuke pressed, always focused on ultimate objectives rather than intermediary steps. Naruto looked toward the Hokage monument, the stone faces illuminated by moonlight that stirred the silver chakra within him. "Then we take the fight to them. Not just defensively, but proactively. Eclipse has been operating from shadows for too long, hurting too many people in pursuit of power they don't understand and purposes they've distorted." The quiet determination in his voice resonated with his companions, each recognizing that their mission to the temple had been merely the beginning of a larger confrontation, one that would test not just Naruto's new abilities but the bonds between them, the strength of Konoha's foundations, and ultimately, the true purpose of powers ancient enough to have faded into legend until now. As they parted ways for the evening, each returning to homes and responsibilities temporarily set aside during their mission, Naruto paused on the bridge where Team 7 had so often met in earlier days. The water below reflected moonlight in rippling patterns that seemed to mirror the lunar chakra flowing through his newly established pathways. Eclipse was rising, its shadow extending toward Konoha and beyond. But shadows only formed where light already existed, and Naruto had always faced darkness with unwavering brilliance, even before golden solar chakra had awake. Ned in his right hand and silver lunar in his left. With renewed purpose, he turned toward home, the knowledge from ancient crystal memories guiding his steps toward a future neither Eclipse nor the original celestial clans could have anticipated, one where these reawakened bloodlines would serve not abstract balance or predetermined destiny, but the protection of bonds that transcended power itself. Chapter 2 End.